Tricked you, idiots. You thought that countdown was gonna be real? Fools. Okay, so obviously I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a trick there because I saw Bestman. He thought it was gonna take way longer. Not this time. But before I bring in Tad, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out. We love you. We appreciate you. And I'm gonna go ahead and bring in the man, the myth, the legend himself, Tad Larkin. Pleasure to have you back with us,
everyone.
But yeah, guys, I apologize with the timer thing. I'm never gonna let that get down to 0. It's just never gonna happen. But yeah, I wanted to have Tad back on because last time we talked, Mr. Tad, we were having a conversation about Star Wars canon and what we consider canon, what we consider don't, yada yada, whatever. All those good things. And then I think that there's been like a lot of conversation like in the EU space, like back when Disney was buying Star Wars, as to, you're hearing people say, the Expanded Universe was never canon. George didn't consider it canon. And then the other thing is, does that even matter? Does George Lucas considering like the Expanded Universe canon? Who cares? So I wanted to get your opinion on that, and because you did all this great research for your Expanded Universe expose. Again, classic video, absolutely love it. I want everyone to watch it. So, what are your thoughts? Go ahead, hit me with them.
Well, the one thing we have to remember, and I touched a little bit on this last time, is that hold on, sorry, things are falling off my desk. There's two really types of canon that we've seen kind of evolve in the 20th century, 21st century. It used to be like traditional canon was, the author, whatever the author wrote was canon, and whatever was written by others was just fan fiction, wasn't, part of the universe. But then we started coming out with, franchises. We had like Transformers. That's a multimedia franchise where different authors and creators are adding to a canon. They're adding to a continuity. We've had it with Bionicle. Anybody who grew up in the early 2000s like me and loved was a big Lego Bionicle fan.
I'm getting into Lego as I get older. I'm starting to I bought a couple. We made a couple sets, and now I'm like, oh, this is going to be very bad for me. This is clearly an addiction already.
Oh yeah, it's like. but besides that, before I talk about Lego forever,
yeah,
that had its own multimedia franchise of comics, books, all written by different authors, and they all contributed to one overarching canon. So with Star Wars, I wouldn't say they pioneered that, but I think they were one of the first franchises to do that. And George Lucas even opens up the floodgates, so to say, in the Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which was the first EU novel written in 1977. It was based off of a script for Empire Strikes, what would become Empire Strikes Back, but was just
if it didn't get funded.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah,
touched
yeah,
a bit on that in the last one as well. But
that one's an interesting read. There's like a lot of slapping of Leia in that for some reason.
yeah, and there's some weird like incesty stuff, but this was with a lot of those 70s and 80s comics before you find out that Luke and Leia are brother and sister. There's a lot of like illusion, like even in the Marvel comics, there's like, oh, are they going to get together? Are they not going to get together? Is Leia going to pick Han or is Leia going to pick Luke?
Yep.
But I had a train of thought, and I completely got
You're totally fine. Tad's been traveling around the galaxy. He's a little swamped, but yeah. But yeah, I think what we were getting at here was, Star Wars like kind of grew like beyond George Lucas, and so much was like written in that universe, like under that IP, and as it went along, I feel like when something becomes like monolithic like that, like it's so huge, like you think of like, I hate to draw this comparison, but like a Shakespeare play or something like that, like something that's just in the cultural zeitgeist, everyone's aware of it. Now at this point, like a lot of people aren't even aware of who's even making like Star Wars stuff, like just normies like out there on the street. So I think that once something grows to like that extent, it's no longer just the creator of it. Obviously, right. Like George Lucas, like made some like the most pivotal movies like in American franchise history, but it's beyond him now. Like like I feel like he said that a couple times. Like,
yeah, he was aware of this in the Splinters of the Mind Eye. Wow, Splinters of the Mind's Eye.
There you go.
Splinter of the Mind's Eye introduction. He even says that. He says Star Wars is, and this is before the other 3 movies have come out. The other 2, well, 6. But I'm of the,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He even says like, and I'm gonna touch on what Siberian Dream is saying down here too, because that was interesting. It's gotten away from him. Like he created this awesome universe, and he relied on other people to like create this universe for him, or play in the universe. He didn't really have anything really beyond episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And even so, there's like some inconsistency, like tiny bit of inconsistencies between these films, where you start to get the impression that George's mind isn't like continuity based. He's not thinking of the big picture. He's a small picture guy. He likes details. He likes putting all these little details in movies, but he doesn't like come up with like backstories for why these little details are there. He relies on others to do that. And like Siberian Dream down in the comments a couple things ago on the chat, he said that, and this is an actual thing, when he asked how Anakin got his scar in Revenge of the Sith, he literally says, "I don't know." But the actual quote was, "I don't know, maybe he fell in the bathtub or something." But as we know, anybody who's read Star Wars Republic, I believe it's issue like 70 something. I can't remember which issue. We know
that comic ran for a long time. So
Anakin got his scar from Asajj Ventress shortly after the Battle of Rendili. So
yeah, it's like this is something like I've been like doing a ton of like reading into like Fallout stuff, because I actually just made a second channel about Fallout.
I saw that, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you. But they, during the early development of like Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, and even going into like the original version of Fallout 3 that we never got, they had what they called like the Fallout Bible, where they were like, okay, this is all of the lore that we have for this game, so we're going to constantly come back to reference this. And my understanding was that was Pablo Hidalgo's job was like basically be like the Star Wars lore Bible holder. And so it was George Lucas like never planned on making 7, 8, and 9. There's some conflicting things there, like on whether or not he was actually going to, or if he wasn't. I know that like he handed in treatments. Like treatments aren't really the same thing as scripts. So
Yeah.
like Disney just like did their own thing.
Well, there was a
And
quote from 2005. Sorry to interrupt you.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
There was a quote from 2005 asking, after Revenge of the Sith, because that kind of wrapped up the whole saga. He was asked, I think it was by MTV, and he was asked, "Are you gonna make another trilogy?" And he said, "No, I have no plans to make another trilogy."
Yeah, I mean, like,
So I firmly believe he was done. He decided 6 was enough, and I firmly believe, like from what we saw with, with TCW arising, I firmly believe that television was the future of Star Wars at that point.
yeah.
And with Star Wars Underworld, he was starting to get into doing that as well. I think that was his next big move for Star Wars. I don't think it was another trilogy. It was definitely TV series.
What was Underworld's plot again? Remind me of that.
I believe it was like Purge era.
Oh, I love that.
I that's all I really know besides that and like the 3-minute like clip that they released like a couple
like
years ago.
The test footage from
The test footage.
It's like upsetting to see that shit and to be like, damn, like we really could have got something here. We could have got something that was. I mean, the Disney Plus stuff that they have coming out now. I know, like we won't dive into it too much because I know you don't watch it, and EU fans, it is what it is.
Good to talk about it. I have no animosity towards it. I just don't know anything about it because I don't watch it.
Iron Inquisitor, we'll get to your question here in just a second. But what we're getting is it's fine, but like it's knowing that like we could have gotten like a young like Jedi Knights like show or something like that, which I know was like kind of floating out there in the ether somewhere, like where there was a potential for that to happen. I mean, I would agree with you that like George did think that television was the future of Star Wars. I mean, he even did that with TCW, releasing the movie in theaters. Like, hey, there's gonna be a cartoon, an ongoing one that's like set in the same time period, and take that the decanonization of a lot of the EU stuff as it is, but like clearly that was like sort of what he was thinking.
Yeah,
and maybe that was like a less pressure on, like a big blockbuster film like being released in theaters. There's a lot of pressure with that, like that people have to like live up to. A Star Wars TV show, like I feel like Star Wars really could exist in a very good niche there for television. And Disney Plus stuff, this isn't just this isn't just me speaking about the Star Wars stuff. Like even the Marvel stuff on there is like pretty mid to like completely skippable, stuff like that. So it's like, if we like the EU is a little weird. Like there was like weird shit that happened in the EU. There's like way larger sweeping, plot points and stuff like that. That I think that the current Disney canon is like kind of missing out on. But like what I'm getting at here is, like we're going back to our original point, was George Lucas like handed this stuff off to like other people. He's like, I've made my movies, no longer my problem. You guys deal with the implications of everything else that's happened in the universe. Do you think that all the stuff that George would have made for television would have just completely skipped over the EU stuff? Like, do you think it would have been retconned regardless?
I do. I mean, we saw that with TCW, and then a lot of people were with like the games that were coming out too. A lot of people were sad that the Darth Maul game got canceled. They were sad that 1313 got canceled. And then I'm like, well, yeah, they were cool games, but their entire premises were going to just steamroll over some already established expanded universe stuff. Like 1313 would have completely changed Boba Fett's backstory. And then obviously the Darth Maul game was set with coinciding with TCW, and I don't consider any of that part of the expanded universe for how it basically it just ignored it. So that would be
the Maul game would have like completely retconned even later stuff, like that, because Crate was going to be involved and Talon was going to be there. I'm just like, no, fuck all of that. Absolutely not.
And if you recall, like some of the treatments that George sent into Disney was going to have like Darth Talon and Darth Maul. Completely weird, but
he had a thing for it. We talked about this last stream. Like he clearly had a thing for Talon. I feel like he just walked into a room and saw one of like those life-size sculptures of it, and he was like, "Oh."
Well, we do know
Okay.
George read the comics, so perhaps he actually read Legacy and liked Talon.
I would love to get I would like love to hear his opinion on it because it's so extreme. It's such like a 90s like version of Star Wars, I feel, even though it was made like in the 2000s, but it's like so over the top and so extreme. So I would love to like actually hear his opinion on some of these things because like famously he has said like he doesn't like that Luke married Mara Jade or whatever. I don't remember what the exact like
Yeah,
quote
I don't
was
know
that he
where
had
that
about that.
quote comes from. I had never seen that in my
Let's go look it up.
previous research before that weird. I don't know if it was a deep fake or if it was like a sketch of like him flipping out about Mara
And
Jade in
slapping
like a
that dude.
writer's room. Yeah.
It was that was a meeting they were having for a Robot Chicken. So
Okay.
it was a sketch, like it wasn't intended to be serious,
Oh, okay.
and so that was like a thing that they had done for like a very niche audience like us.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't know who Mara Jade was unless like you read the Expanded Universe.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know where that quote comes from with the whole not liking Mara Jade thing because I don't think he would have allowed her to exist if that was actually a thing. Like, because we're gonna get into what I probably more of this later, but as
Mhm.
somebody down here was saying, um, the authors were required for like major story stuff, which I consider somebody marrying a major character like Luke Skywalker to be something worthy enough to bring to George's attention. For major story beats, he was given a checklist with
Mhm.
story ideas that the author wanted to do, and then he would check either yes or no. So
I
I
love
feel
that.
like if he was given that and he really didn't like Mara Jade, it was like Luke marries Mara Jade, he would have checked no. You know. Now,
Mhm.
granted, this guy changed his mind a lot. We all know, but that was a decision that was made.
Yeah, and like I think that was like even like a thing when they were going through like alien designs and stuff like that, like during the prequels, like he would just walk by like a table of stuff, like
Yeah,
that one's good, that one's good. That's like
yeah.
I gotta
He
go
did
back
that
and
with General
rewatch some of those behind
Grievous.
the scenes stuff.
General
Yeah, yeah,
Grievous,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I felt like, dude, and all the stuff for General Grievous, like in the expanding universe that was coming out like around that same time,
hmm
that speaks volumes to like how important like the EU was because they really fleshed that character out
they
in
did.
everything else because realistically he's in the movie, he's in Revenge of the Sith for like 20 minutes, like maybe,
Yeah,
like it's kind of like a that was one of the big criticisms of that movie when it came out was, well, okay, now we have General Grievous, who's like the implication is that he's been involved with like the plot line for a while now, but
hmm
we've never met him before, stuff like that.
right.
But if you're, again, we talked about this last time, you're getting rewarded for paying attention.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes an expanded universe so fun.
Well, interesting. Well, I'm sure we'll get more into like things from the expanded universe that made it into the films later. But while on the subject of Grievous, it was actually Genndy Tartakovsky who did the original Clone Wars series. He
Yep,
was
yep.
having lunch with George Lucas one day, and he asked George, "So wait, how does General Grievous know how to use lightsabers?" And George said, "I have no clue." And then Genndy was like, "Well, maybe Count Dooku trains him." And then George put that in the movie. You know,
Yeah, yeah. He like
um,
he picked and chose like certain thing. I mean, like there's the Quinlan Voss is like he's in episode 1, right? Like in the
yeah.
background. Yeah,
Well, so John Ostrander kind of took that guy in the background and then created Quinlan Voss. But then
I love that even more though.
we do know that George read at least the Republic series, or at least the latter half of the Republic series, because when John Ostrander was planning to kill him off at the end of Republic, he actually came in and said, "No, I'd like you to keep him alive."
Yeah, and I just wanted to address this comment really quickly. I believe it was George Lucas's choice that Anakin was given a Padawan for TCW. I don't think that was necessarily just a Filoni thing. I think that George signed off on that is my assumption because that was back when like George still fully owned the company and like they had all of their like all of the TV rights and stuff like that. So I feel like that was a George Lucas decision, was it not? Are you aware of an answer for that, Tad?
So when I did my original "Why TCW Doesn't Fit" video, I
Mm-hmm.
actually did some extensive research into whether it was George's idea or Filoni's idea, and I could not get a definitive answer. But
Yeah.
like you're saying, something major like that would have had to been approved by George Lucas. So even if it wasn't his idea, which I don't think it inherently was, um, he did approve of it.
Yeah, because the buck still stops with him. He's like the beginning, the middle, and the end of all of those decisions, especially something that big, like giving
Right. And
Anakin, the most unstable human being in the galaxy, a
a
Padawan.
child. Yeah, a literal child to look at.
Yeah.
Um, really quick before we go back, I feel that with the amount of attention Ahsoka is continuing to get, even after George's involvement, and the just how involved she is with pretty much every TV show that comes out now, and the
Yep.
fact that we know George wanted her dead at the end of season 5 in TCW, leads me to believe that perhaps she was actually Filoni's idea, because obviously he's utilizing her so much. But again, this is an assumption just based off of what we see in the franchise today. But
Yeah, I mean, like it's all building towards. I'd actually like made a video on this somewhat recently that they're clearly building towards like the Thrawn trilogy, like more or less. Like Thrawn's clearly going to be involved, and
yeah,
Snoke's going to be Jorah Sabayoth, and Ahsoka's going to be in the place of Luke. And I'm just like, I don't care about that at all. Like that just does nothing for me. It just feels,
right.
I feel numb to it. But yeah, sorry. Going back on the topic of George considering the EU canon and whatnot. I mean, he is signing. If there's something that he really hated, he would veto it.
Right.
And that's like during the Dark Empire comic book run, like when they were developing that. If memory serves, like they wanted to bring back Vader, and he was like,
Yes.
no. If you're gonna bring back somebody, bring back Palpatine.
Yep.
So he is involved, like he is around, like in that sphere, giving yeses or nos.
Yeah. He's signing off on important stuff. He might not know like everything, but he
Yeah.
does. He's given things to basically say, yeah, that can happen. No, that can't happen.
Yeah.
And there are so obviously, like I previously stated, there were some stories that he was interested in. He really likes Quinlan Voss. We established that. Really likes Darth Talon. We established that, but that could be for other reasons.
We know there's ulterior motives there for that one.
Yeah. But
A lot of long lunch breaks with George after he saw that statue. Sorry.
No, it's fine. But like, we know he was interested in some of the stories. We know he was involved. He was involved with some stories more than others. Like, he was very involved with The Force Unleashed when they were developing that. If you actually watch the documentary, which is free on YouTube, and I have actually used it in one of my videos, they did like a behind the scenes documentary where George is sitting down in the writer's room, and they're all bouncing ideas off of him, and we actually get a view of one of the checklists that they have to send him back and forth to. And it's very surreal kind of seeing that, because it makes me feel at least like, okay, I'm not crazy. I know this was a thing,
that George was like involved in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and because at the end of the day, it is his universe, and he's just letting these people play in it.
Yeah.
And we've got quotes that both say that maybe he did consider it canon, maybe he didn't. And it's interesting to note, and I said this in the last video, that he never uses the word canon in any of his quotes. I don't even know if he's actually aware of what the term is or what it meant. At least, back when he was still involved.
Yeah.
But he has stated that in that famous Starlog quote, he's like, the Expanded Universe isn't my universe, but, the movies are my universe. And then he says that it's like a parallel universe. And people, think that means, oh, well, George obviously doesn't, consider that canon. It's not like, and I'm just like, no, he's just saying that he's focused on this snippet. He's focused on this Skywalker family drama saga of the whole of the universe, while all the other authors are concerned with the whole of the universe.
And I think that people like they read that quote from George Lucas like in the same way that they would like listen to an interview about George speaking about like Disney or something. Like they're reading it like in that same tone of voice, which I think is like unfair because like I was trying to like track down an actual physical copy of that magazine that he was quoted in,
Yeah.
and I read that and I was like, I didn't take that as like this people loved that quote. They were like,
Yeah.
oh, he fucking hated the expanded universe, like he would have never, yada yada whatever. And I feel like people read into that a lot. Like they're really doing a lot of work for that quote, which does not really, go alongside with what they're saying.
Yeah, that's a problem that transcends Star Wars that we're having today. Well,
Yeah.
it's everywhere. People take quotes and statements from all sorts of media, articles, news outlets, whatever, and then they try to mold it to fit their narrative instead of looking objectively at what people say and like the facts. And that's the problem with a lot of modern journalism today. That's the problem with
it's a problem with
society
like
today. In my not so humble opinion, but
it's an issue with like the age of social media in general is like everything is sensationalized, and then on top of that it's like AI is like going to, it's funny right now like seeing Trump and Biden and whoever else like playing Minecraft, pretty funny to see that as like an AI. But like once the technology gets like intelligent enough, that's going to be pretty bad.
Yeah, once it gets indistinguishable, the world's going to be screwy.
Yeah, that's where we're going to be in some real trouble. But I did want to comment here on Duo's comment. Filoni wrote for Avatar: The Last Airbender, I wouldn't throw him under the bus entirely under the bus. I would agree with that. Avatar: The Last Airbender is great, but I did want to say this: Legend of Korra is better. I don't care what anyone says. You're all wrong. Legend of Korra is better. Suck it. But Filoni is like Judas. Only Judas at least felt remorse. I mean, I wouldn't. I don't think I would go that far with it. I do think that Dave Filoni has, I can understand where he's coming from when he says stuff like, well, like I didn't want to like be held to these constraints and like on stories that I didn't write.
Yeah. I can
understand that. I can appreciate that. But I think that like what gets on people's nerves is like the reusing of EU characters.
Yeah.
Like Thrawn, like you get close to like making an expanded universe thing in your universe, but it's just different enough that I'm like, it didn't really do anything for me. Like you doing that,
I mean, we're gonna get back on topic in a second here, but my biggest issue with Filoni is not any of the stuff in TCW or just like it's my issue with him is who he is at like who he thinks he is really.
Mm-hmm.
He has this whole new expanded universe built for him basically, and he still ignores it. He still completely ignores the new canon. He does whatever he wants in his show, and it's like, I feel like he legitimately thinks he's George Lucas, and sometimes I feel like he even thinks he's better than George Lucas. That's the sense I get from him, and that's my main problem with Filoni is that he doesn't stay inside his lane, and he has no respect for anybody else's work but his own. At least that's what I get.
Even people who wrote stuff in their canon, like post buyout, even that gets changed. So it's like the changing of the guard didn't make anything smoother or run in a more streamlined way than it was before.
No, it didn't at all. What they hoped that would happen with the not buyout, with the decanonization. What they hoped would happen, it didn't fix anything. It just ran smoothly for like a couple of years, and then now they're in the same issue that the EU's had. But the EU had a tier system to at least like kind of figure out what is more canon than something else, and then they were actively trying to figure out retcons for these things, like I stated last time about Boba Fett's backstory and how I had 3 different backstories, and then they retconned it all into one, and they did a fantastic job on it.
Yeah, it's like there's nothing saying that like that Disney couldn't do that with some of these things, but
oh no.
But anyways, back to like the Georgian canon stuff.
Yeah,
I know that you had a thought on there if you wanted to backtrack to what you were thinking of.
Oh man, My train of thought today is just getting derailed all the time. It must be run
Is
by.
it because of the Wendy's?
I was gonna say it must be run by Norfolk Southern, the rail company that keeps derailing.
Topical. Yes.
I apologize to anybody who lives in Palestine, Ohio, and our thoughts and prayers go out to you.
Yeah, obviously. I can
I'm
see
just
that
taking
point.
a dig at the rail companies.
I've noticed that Filoni has the look of smugness on his face. The fact that he okay, I don't think I'd go that far, man. I mean, I do think that he seems like a totally nice guy or whatever, but he does.
Yeah.
I do think that he people were saying like, oh, he's like the second coming of George and stuff like that, and I feel like that really they took that and just flew with it. Like they were like everyone loves this guy, and like to the point like where it was oversaturating like the internet with like his presence.
Yeah.
That I think like that's really like what did him in. Because if he was just
Right.
like Jon Favreau or whatever, just like doing his thing behind the scenes, he was showing up. Hey guys, we got this cool new project showing up. We're gonna work on it. Yeah, yada. All right, bye. But like he's like on the forefront of all these things. Like he's at all the conventions. He's like on all like the behind the scenes stuff, all that stuff. I do think that he probably has like a deep appreciation for George Lucas. I don't think that
yeah,
he thinks
definitely.
he might maybe like an inflated ego thing would be possible for sure. And I think that a lot of like the George never considered the Expanded Universe Canon stuff comes from another added layer here to the Filoni verse is that Dave Filoni's like, well, yeah, I'm not worried about the Expanded Universe, and George let me do whatever I wanted with the Clone Wars. I think that people like read into that and they were like, okay, so this is another added thing to like George Lucas not considering the EU canon.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, without risking getting too much more off topic, my only thing with him is I just don't like his seemingly lack of respect for the universe built around him. Like he didn't respect the expanded universe back when his show was supposed to fit within that continuity, and he does not respect the current continuity. But that's my only issue with him.
That'll be an ongoing thing, like forever.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah.
The sun burns out. But yeah, like the reason why we got on this topic in the first place was because, like I said, you were doing so much research about all this stuff, and if George Lucas like was not worried about like the IP externally from the movies, like the books and the comics, the games, all those things, why would they even have like somebody whose job it is to keep the canon in order? Or why would they have like all these game studios working hand in hand with people at Lucasfilm? Like it just doesn't make any sense that those things would be in place if George just like hated the expanded universe.
Right. And he owned the company. He could have axed the expanded universe anytime he wanted.
Yeah.
He could even said, "Hey, I want to reboot it," But none of that ever happened. And here we are. It wasn't until the company was bought out from under him. Well, obviously not bought out from under him. He sold it. We have the pictures, but
yeah, and I think that his whole thing was, well, I don't want to do this anymore, so
yeah,
I'm gonna give it.
And
hopefully, these people can keep their jobs.
Can you blame the guy? I'm not gonna, I'm not the guy who's gonna be like, okay, George Lucas was infallible. He was, this just the epitome of American filmmaking, and I love the guy. I love his movies, obviously. But the fandom, I think, in the last few years of his ownership of the company were way too hard on him. You had people like Red Letter Media just like bashing the prequels, and it just became like a common thing to just like hate George Lucas and the prequels because that's just what the popular zeitgeist was without actually like looking objectively at the films.
Or like seeing like people our age, like who were like, between 7 to like 12 or whatever, that are like, holy shit, these are the best things ever. Like,
right.
Kids were enjoying them. So like just let these children enjoy the movies.
Kids, adults, teens, tweens, we were all enjoying it.
I mean, my mom didn't like leave the theater and wasn't like, that fucking Jar Jar Binks guy was annoying as shit. She was like, oh, that was so fun. Like it was just good, uncomplicated fun.
But And
Yeah.
props to Ahmed Best for finally like breaking out of the Jar Jar role and getting like some duly needed respect.
I will say, dude, like legitimately, that like I've just been watching like The Mandalorian like on my phone, like at 8 in the morning before like I get up and do other shit.
Mhm.
So I was just watching on my phone, had my AirPods on, and I was like, "Is that fucking Ahmed Best?" Like when he shows up, and it made me like emotional. I was like, "Damn, this guy has like been through so much shit." Is like just he got run through the ringer, couldn't get another job like in any other film, like drove himself like nearly to suicide. To see him and like to see him getting that love from like the Star Wars audience is so goddamn. It reminded me of like that brief period where Pokemon Go had just come out and the world was at peace. It was
Right.
like seeing him like on screen, clearly just like, and not only that, he saves Baby Yoda, but he also lives. I was like, dude, fuck yes. I was like, that is so sick. So yeah, I will give Disney credit there. Is that like a lot of those old like prequel actors kind of got like their flowers, like after the play has ended, because like you were saying, like if the zeitgeist at the time was just to shit on the prequels and stuff.
Yeah,
Like to
prequel's
see like
bad,
Hayden
George Lucas
Christensen,
bad. Yeah.
yeah,
He
to see
got
like
hate
Hayden
too.
Christensen show up and stuff like that, and like to get legitimately like cheered
Yeah.
at like conventions, like oh god, dude, this feels so good.
And it's like people pretend like none of that was going on. Like people were terrible to Ahmed Best, they were terrible to George, they were terrible to Hayden Christensen, they were terrible to Jake Lloyd to the point where he got like a drug addiction. Like
A child, like a literal child.
he was a literal
Yeah,
child, and he's getting like made fun of in school and shit. Like, ah.
ridiculous.
So
Yeah,
there's an evil side to the fandom, and I think a lot of us forget that it's there. But
yeah, that's I feel like that's like a victim, like most fandoms fall victim to that, is like
yeah,
there's when you're hyper fixated on something, a lot of people that are also hyper fixating on it, shitty people just exist out in the world. So it's like
yeah,
I feel like every corner of every fandom has the kids that are at the other tables like ruining the meal for everybody else.
yeah,
So I mean, but like when you're an actor and like all you're seeing is like the negativity, because it's like I'm sure you probably experienced this, like if you get like a ton of comments on a video and you have like a bunch of positive ones and then there's like two super negative ones,
yep,
I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing
yeah,
this? You know what I mean? So like now imagine doing that like on a global level where everyone on the planet, there's probably a lot of people like, oh, like Jake Lloyd is like awesome, like this cute little kid, then they're boom just being like bombarded by all of like this negative press. Yeah,
yep.
the Star Wars fandom can be uninviting at times.
But yeah, like I don't think George Lucas is like we shouldn't criticize George Lucas or his films, but I feel like it was too harsh on him.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I'm like,
going back to the original point, I don't blame him for just being like, okay, I'm done.
yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, he wasn't planning on making any more movies. He had gotten like drugged through the dirt by everybody. And I will say I'm a fan of Red Letter Media's other content. I disagree with like almost all of their opinions on the prequels, but I like just like a movie review. I know what both of their opinions are, so like, I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, if this person likes this movie, I'll probably like it. Yeah, yeah, whatever. But yeah, people like shit on the prequels for their like the use of green screen and stuff like that. I'm like, suspend your disbelief a little bit. I
yeah.
was like, just get past it. Just suspend your disbelief.
But we also have documentation that there were plenty of models, like actual physical models, used in the films. Like, for
Yeah.
example, Topeka City on Camino, that was a physical model. And I remember in Star Wars Insiders seeing a picture of the ILM model makers like painting it and
Mm.
everything. And I was looking, I'm like, is that Grant E. Mahara from Mythbusters? And it was.
Oh damn,
Yeah,
crossover.
both Adam Savage and Grant Imahara worked on the prequels because they were before they did MythBusters, they were
I
model
was gonna
makers
say it
for
must have been
ILM.
prior to MythBusters.
Yeah,
Like that made them like huge international stars.
yeah.
Skooma. Are we talking prequel trilogy models?
Oh, yes,
Skooma.
we are.
Fuck yes, Skooma. Dude, Skooma's he's the best of all the basement boys for sure. But yeah, I just wanted to come back up here and address Zim's comment. I know of one fandom that's completely rotten. That would be the Ruby fandom. As a lapsed fan of Rooster Teeth, I can appreciate you saying that. There are a few things on Earth that I love more than model miniatures made for movies. They're so cool. I mean, because it's just like so many man hours that go into that. Like, I don't care for like Nightmare Before Christmas and stuff. I was never like a goth kid or whatever. So, but I can appreciate the stop motion aspect to it. I'm like, damn, like the amount of like work that goes into that is insane, like absolute lunacy. But
And
yeah, what
that's
were
what
we
we
talking
were.
about before? We always get sidetracked.
Well, I was gonna say like what we were talking about a little bit before we started. Um, I when I did people who know me know that when I started on Captain Fordo, I did the little Lego stop motion animation videos, and like the everything that Tim Burton did, like really like interested me in stop motion, and
Mhm. Yeah,
it's like the amount of like detail that the ILM model makers just pour into everything, all the little greeblies. Like they even coined the term greeblies for just like all the extra crap you see on the spaceships and everything that don't really serve a function, but they just look cool.
yeah. I mean, like, and they like invented like a lot of like so much technology was like
Oh yeah,
for film production was pioneered because of George Lucas and Star Wars.
yeah,
So, like, he definitely deserves like all the adulations and like seeing like the amount of work that they put into like even like the Death Star run. I'm like, God damn, dude, but
yeah.
that's like commitment, especially for like a lot of people to work on it and be like, is this movie even gonna be good? Like people who are working on it are like, this might be a bad movie.
Yeah, I mean, like Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford, they didn't take the movie seriously at all. They were joking around on set and stuff. And um, what's his face? Alec Guinness, like he hated being associated with Obi-Wan, and maybe that just comes from being like a classic film actor and then doing a
Yeah,
silly what he considered to be a silly American space movie. But
because he
it
was like
just
a like classically trained actors like back from that generation.
yeah,
They didn't just like learn how to like act like on screen. They did plays. They did mute. They had to like learn how to sing, how to dance. Like it was super involved. So
yeah.
like I'm sure that he was like, what the hell is this thing that I'm? It's like I'm a desert monk somewhere, like taking this boy to a giant Death Star or whatever. I'm sure that like because I think that Peter Cushing even like wasn't he just like putting like wearing like house shoes like on set because he's like the boots aren't comfortable.
He was wearing bunny slippers because the boots weren't comfortable. So
Yeah,
anytime you
yeah.
see a shot where his feet are cut off, that's because he's wearing slippers.
Fuck yeah, dude.
But
Uh, so I have a question. In the movies, there was two deleted scenes where Shakti, where she dies, and then the Force Unleashed one, Shakti died at the hands of Starkiller. Which version is better? Um, honestly, I would say that I would prefer to her for her to get killed by Grievous because I take Force Unleashed as like a light canon. I don't take a lot of the events in that like as hardcore canon. And they made Shakti way too hot for being like in her 50s. So I'm like, okay, like she might still look good, but like she wouldn't be wearing that shit. Like, come on.
I mean,
But
I'd smash, but
I wouldn't say. I mean, I'm more of a Mars Brood kind of guy myself.
oh yeah,
She
she's
looks
pretty
like she's got
smashable
problems,
too.
and I think I could fix her. It's like my is my
Oh,
opinion.
oh yeah, that's like the Wednesday personality.
Yeah. It's like a Trilla, like in the Jedi Fallen Order or whatever. Everyone's like, damn, she's like hot, like in a weird way, like in like a, that she's like damaged very deeply, like in her psyche.
Right?
Yeah, George Lucas and the others would buy model kits of World War II planes and battleships, and that's how they crafted models in A New Hope.
Interesting. I did not know that one.
I feel like that's like got to be like where would you go to like get modeling kits back then? Like I feel like I can go anywhere and get those things now, but
Yeah, you can
I
go
never
to
saw
like
that shit when I was a kid.
you can even get them at like Walmart now, but
Oh yeah,
no, I don't know. They probably just specialized hobby stores.
yeah, probably MILF shock tea. You know what?
Shakti.
I don't love the way you verbalize that, but I'll accept it.
So I do prefer the Force Unleashed death better, but because it doesn't really mesh well if having her die in Revenge of the Sith, because if you recall in the micro series, Grievous, he doesn't at the end when he captures Palpatine, he like wraps her up in like live electrical wire and leaves her there for Mace Windu to find. So
Oh,
yeah, or
I
not
guess I
Mace
don't
Windu, but
remember that.
like the well, watch the micro series again. At the end of the micro series, like I don't think it was Mace Windu. I think it was because Mace Windu falls out of the gunship and then crushes Grievous's chest. But
Oh yeah, and that's like why his breath is all fucked.
I can't remember which Jedi, but the Jedi come and they come to the Chancellor's secret bunker and they find her all wrapped up in the electrical wire, and she's like, "I failed."
Just doing a
So,
bunker hunker.
bunker
No, Joe,
hunker.
we're not saying that we're not saying she died in that. We're saying that like it makes sense continuity wise for her to have lived because she
Yeah,
doesn't die on screen in Revenge of the Sith.
right.
So yeah, it would
There's
make sense that
actually
she lived.
two versions of her dying in Revenge of the Sith deleted scenes. There was one at the hands of Grievous in the hallway on an invisible hand, and then there was another of Anakin killing her in a hologram on the in the
Yeah.
Jedi Temple. But
Yeah, that's the Revenge of the Sith game is incredible for those things because well, you see more of like what Anakin like actually was doing in the temple and
right,
stuff like that, but it gives like Syndralig like an actual backstory, like Sarah Keto and all those things. Like it just
yeah,
adds more to that universe that will allow other people like to continue like on those stories in the expanded universe. That it's like that fleshy pieces of those games don't get made anymore. Like movie
no.
tie-in games are awful. Most people like hate them. They're unplayable. But Revenge of the Sith aged like fine wine. Like it's still so good even to this day.
Revenge of the Sith was good. The Phantom Menace one was terrible, but it was derpy enough that you could have fun with it.
I remember playing the Attack of the Clones video game. Like I went to an actual physical location to rent a video game, which is like a novel concept these days. But actually going out and renting Attack of the Clones and playing that with my brother, I was like, dude, this game is like fantastic. I fear like going back to play that game because it's gonna be way worse than I remember it being.
Oh yeah.
But when I played through Revenge of the Sith on stream here on the basement, I was like, oh my god, this game is like even better than I remember it being. Like there's so many layers to like that game, and like the fighting option, like brilliant, absolutely brilliant to have like a dueling option between couch co-op thing to sit there and shit on your friend. Like that's
Oh
I
man.
wish that if we would have gotten that for Rise of Skywalker, maybe I would have loved it.
The days of couch co-op they will
Long
live on
gone.
forever in my heart, but they are long gone.
Yeah.
But
My site, another one of the basement boys here, don't care for Filoni at all. Tartakovsky had way more respect for Star Wars than Filoni does. I think that Filoni's got respect for just the movies.
yeah.
I think, but that's the problem is that we've had as an underlying issue going on
Well,
with
another
Star Wars ever
interesting
since.
thing about going into George Lucas and his involvement with the expanded
Yeah.
universe. So Gendy and George would have lunch often to discuss some of like what George kind of wants out of the micro series, even though he wasn't executively producing it. Tartakovsky really wanted his input, and he wanted to show for Anakin, because George was like, okay, well you can show Anakin being knighted, and Gendy was like, oh, so you must have a lot of all these interesting ideas of how a knighting ceremony is supposed to go, and George literally is like, nah, not really. So
I love that about him though. I love that
yeah,
like the behind the scenes like for like I think it's for the Clone Wars where like
it's
he
the
shows them.
DVD commentary.
But there's like one like where he's like showing the movie to a group of people.
Oh
And
yeah,
the lights come on. He goes, "I think I may have gone too far in a couple of places." I love that about like those old because that shit doesn't happen in Disney stuff. Like you're not seeing behind the scenes stuff like where people are arguing about like plot points or
oh really?
set design stuff like that. Seeing that with like George Lucas being like, "No man, that cut wasn't great." Seeing that feels it really humanizes him as a person.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Star Wars saga Battlegrounds? I don't know what that is.
Is he talking about the Age of Empires clone Star Wars Battlegrounds?
You were playing quite a bit of that back in the day, weren't you? Like on stream?
No, I have not actually played Star Wars Battlegrounds on screen. On stream, I've been playing Star Wars Empire War, a mod
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of.
called Rise of the Mandalorians, and eventually I'll get into different mods later. But
I feel like somebody just did like a mod for maybe not just, but they did a mod for Jedi Academy where you can fight like Yuuzhan Vong.
oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah. It was. I think it wasn't like super in depth, but it like added them as a model and added their weapons and stuff. But
That would be cool.
but yeah, like going back to the George Lucas stuff, like him, like people wanted his input, obviously, like when they're working on these projects, like they want to like have some form of understanding of what he would do.
Yeah, even
Do
when
you,
they weren't required to.
like what do you have like any idea like on this specific topic? Like how often were some of like these EU authors like actually talking to George Lucas like about books and stuff like that and things that we're writing?
So we know James Luceno, when he was doing Plagueis, did actually get to talk with George, and it was George's idea that Plagueis was actually immune. So I don't think like the authors got to talk a lot with him. I feel like more like because George is a very visual guy. He likes comics. We know that because Star Wars itself is inspired by the 1950s serial comics he used to read when he was a kid. We know he liked television, and we know he liked the video games. So because like we'd have there's a lot more interaction. What I'm trying to say is there's a lot more interaction with like the video games and the comic authors than there were with like the actual novel authors, because I don't think George, being a visual guy, I don't quite think he liked to read quite a bit,
Some people are like that, and like because isn't he also a fan of anime? If I'm not mistaken.
So when the 2008 Clone Wars came out, there was an interview with him, and he was saying how he was inspired by the anime feeling of Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, and he kind of recycled some of like the visuals that Genndy used in his series for the 2008 series. But
sure. And then I just wanted to address this comment really quick. Let me ask you, Barb, being me, do you think it's possible to get a new Legends novel? No. I mean, would it be like, is it physically possible? Yes. But like, will it happen? Probably not, which sucks. I mean, it would be no sweat off their back. Like they're like a, billion-dollar organization. They could easily pay some author to like write something that's set in the expanded universe. And I don't think that it's like a lot of people will mention that and they'll say stuff like, well, no, because then they have to admit that like their trilogy was a failure.
No,
I don't think that's what it is with them. I think that what it is with them is probably they're just like, well, like a Johnny Lunchpail kind of guy who's like goes to Barnes and Noble or whatever, sees a Star Wars book, and it's not set in our universe. They're going to get confused. But I don't think that would not be a problem. Like I just think that people are already like normal mainstream people, like people who aren't freaks like us who consume all this shit. They're already aware of like multiverse stuff with like Marvel. Like think about that. Comic book characters who were all like C-list level characters in Marvel comics
are now getting their own franchises.
They're now the largest IP on the planet. So I don't think that people are that dumb to the point like where they wouldn't get it. But I think that that's like their belief is that there's a great scene in an episode of Futurama where there's like an executive robot and they go, it's a great story, but will it get them off their tractors? I think that that's like how they actually think of people is they would be too dumb to get it. But I don't think that it's deeper than that. That like there's a lot of like weird people like love to say that Kathleen Kennedy's about to be fired any day, and that they're having all these conversations. There's a civil war at Disney, all this other shit. I think it's much more mundane than that. I think that it's just that they're like, well, why would we have to like pay this person? And it might open up like some legal issues with like licensing, and maybe we weren't paying these people royalties for like these books that they wrote. Or I think that it's just much more litigious than that. Like I don't think that it's something deeper than that. But I want to come back here to Skuma's comment. Kevin J. Anderson talked with Lucas a lot. He lived very close to Skywalker Ranch and visited frequently.
Oh, really?
I feel like Kevin J. Anderson, like, he was given a lot of like leeway with the early EU, with like the Jedi Search books and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like he kind of even with the Tales of the Jedi stuff as well. Like because that was Kevin J. Anderson, and did Veitch, like, was he a writer on that as well?
I don't remember if Veitch wrote for
Tales,
the Tales of the Jedi, but maybe, because given the amount of Tales of the Jedi cameos we have in Dark Empire, it's quite possible.
and like there's like a ton of references to Tales of the Jedi stuff in the Jedi Academy games,
Yeah,
like in the Dark Force, like all the Kyle Katarn stuff. Like again, another example of the EU was canon.
in
They had like
interconnectivity.
they had like these massive like game franchises that came out that like tied into comic books that most people probably weren't reading.
Oh yeah,
So
and KOTOR, all that stuff also reference Tales of the
Exar
Jedi.
Kun, Mandalorian Wars, like stuff that was like I mean Exar Kun like had like bringing Mandalorians into like his war camp and stuff like that. That stuff's like KOTOR is like the most probably one of the most famous Star Wars games ever made.
Yeah,
Fallen Order like probably didn't reach the same acclaim as like KOTOR did, but
I don't even think it
most,
reached Force Unleashed really, but that's my opinion.
yeah, like I think that KOTOR was a massive hit. People absolutely love that game, and it's just littered with expanding universe like nods and references and stuff like that, and Freed and Nad and all these other things, like things that come up like in KOTOR 2. It's all interconnected. And sorry, I just wanted to address this as well. By the way, Barb, how is it that you have 30K subs? Those video channels tend to be very tiny.
You do new canon stuff too.
I do some new canon stuff. It's less frequent these days, but that's not a that's neither here nor there. But no, I think that like Star Wars channels, there's only room for so many people to like. As much as like we probably want it to be like this sweeping thing that like everybody loves, I think that it's very niche, and like I'm not making. I'll bite my tongue here a little bit, but I'm not making your usual clickbait like bullshit that like I absolutely hate. Like if I see one more video of someone saying that Darth Vectivus was a good Sith Lord, I'm actually gonna throw a brick like into their house. Like I'll actively be antagonistic. There's so many people who got like their early starts like on YouTube with Star Wars stuff, just like reading Wikipedia articles and having no context for like the greater like themes of the thing that they're reading. So I like to think that maybe some people were like watching some of my stuff and they were like, oh, like this dude's like actually read the shit and he's not like a knuckle dragging moron who thinks that Gray Jedi are real. I had to throw that in there. I always have to throw in the Gray Jedi stuff. But yeah, sorry, I just wanted to like get that in there right at the end.
I will say every time you post a poll, I'm afraid to look at the poll, so like I'll vote in the poll and then I'll get immediately disappointed with everybody else's answers.
Yeah, because a lot of people's knowledge of the expanded universe does not come from actually reading this stuff.
Right.
Like it comes from consuming other people's stuff, like making content on it. That's why like I won't make a video on something that I don't know about. Like I won't, because I don't want to speak out of turn. And like sometimes I just don't want to reread. I'm not going to reread the Jedi Search books. I didn't love them. I read them like 2 or 3 times when I was younger. I'm not a super big fan of Kevin J. Anderson's like writing overall. He 100% the shit that happened to him was bullshit, and he should have, all the stuff. But
wait, what happened to him?
Like just like I think that the whole thing was he wasn't getting paid royalties for books. I think that was like a thing with like a lot of EU authors. Like
I didn't hear that about Kevin J. Anderson, but I heard that about oh god, I was just talking about him the other day.
Kevin J. Anderson. I think that Skooma gonna know something more about this. Like Skooma, I think that he was the one who was telling me about it, and it was like on like Reddit it was like kind of like up there like the Expanded Universe subreddit for like a minute or two.
Yeah.
They were just like weren't treating EU authors the right way. And
no, they weren't getting their royalties, but
no, I think that was like a thing with Veitch as well. But Veitch wrote the first few Tales of the Jedi comic arcs by himself. Kevin J. Anderson came on board once Uluk was introduced.
Gotcha.
Okay. Are you thinking about Troy Denning? Are you thinking about the Troy Denning hate? He doesn't get enough of it. That's all I'll say.
Wow. I mean, I Alan Dean Foster. I knew it started with an A. Thank you, Skooma.
Skooma, fucking, he's the man. I don't know why. I don't know why I thought it was Kevin J. Anderson, but
yeah, I didn't hear anything about Kevin J. Anderson, but I did hear about Alan Dean Foster. I don't know if the other ones didn't get paid either and just shut up or what, but
I think that they were having licensing issues because they're technically still selling the books, but there's a corporate merger. They're under like a different branding.
Yeah.
I think that there was like a lot of things that were going on there. Kevin J. Anderson actually quit Star Wars in the late 90s due to the way Bantam Spectre was paying authors. I'm assuming it was not good because I think that like a lot of publishing houses and stuff like that, if memory serves, they view like they would view that as an adaptation of like a Star Wars story, not necessarily as like a whole brand new creation by Kevin J. Anderson.
Right.
So I think that like more than likely, the going rate for authors writing those books is probably pretty bad.
Oh, possibly.
Is my assumption.
I have no clue.
Yeah, I don't have any inside knowledge there, but yeah, so I apologize to the stream. We always get way off topic on these things, and
Yeah.
Tad's way better at keeping us on track than I am. I'm an awful host in that way. I'm always like, oh yeah, I'm going to go off on this tangent about this comment that somebody made.
I tried to, but I was off in space once you mentioned that thing from Futurama, and I was just remembering like, oh, was that the one with the guy? It was a boardroom meeting of robots, and one of the one threw dice to figure out what shows we would watch.
Yeah, Execubots, like they came in.
Execubots, that's what
they rolled it, and they were like, more reality television, like Futurama.
Game shows are back.
Game shows are back. Yeah, if you guys have not watched Futurama, definitely go watch it. But yeah, so like there's just like a lot that like this topic that we could like cover overall. But I think that like our both of our general opinion is it does not matter that if George Lucas was not that concerned about the EU, and it was probably always going to get retconned.
Yeah.
And because like he did have treatments, like we had talked about, he had treatments for 7, 8, 9 that Disney like immediately threw into like a landfill somewhere, I'm sure. And
they put it up on the fridge.
Yeah, yeah. But the scripts that he had, if memory serves, were going to decanonize the EU anyways. Like it was going to be about brand new characters. It was going to be about like the Solo children and stuff like that. It was going to be about.
Well, I don't know if it would have decanonized, but it would have ignored a lot of stuff.
Yeah. More of like in ignoring the expanded universe as opposed to just obliterating it and being like no more books allowed in the EU.
So George knew of the Solo children, and it was him that he decided that he wanted to kill off Anakin Solo.
Yep.
In New Jedi Order, because that was around when the prequels started coming out, and he thought people would be confused between Anakin Skywalker and Anakin Solo. But
so he was doing an Execubot move where he's like, "Will it get them off their tractors?" moment.
Well, he allegedly did the same thing with the Korriban Moraband thing. But
yeah, that's just all different levels of dumb and irritating. I have this really great Korriban original piece that I had that my wife and my mother got for me for Christmas. I'll take it off the wall for this. Boom. Korriban.
Nice. I like that.
Homeworld of the Sith. And my mom very slyly came down and she was here visiting and she goes, "What's the name of the Sith planet? Was it Korriban or was it Moraband?" I was like, that's a complicated question, but the answer is Korriban. She goes, "Right. Okay." And then she scurried off. So I think what she did was she immediately messaged the guy that she had paid to commissioned this piece. I was like, "It's Korriban, not Moraband." She was like, please, make sure you correct that. Yeah, because I would have thrown this in the trash otherwise. But no, it's sick as hell. It's actually by the same artist who did all of our little pieces of like channel art and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
But, yeah. He did a phenomenal job. I'm very impressed by it.
Why didn't you have Skooma Joe do it?
Skooma actually is doing all the artwork for Barb's Vault, the Fallout channel that I have. And he is not disappointed. That dude is the shit. Gotcha. As soon as Disney bought Lucasfilm, many of the authors stopped receiving royalties. It's very weird and unclear why some authors were getting paid and some aren't. Okay, yeah. That's what I was thinking. Because I remember seeing that like popping up like in even like the big Star Wars subreddit, not just the EU subreddit, like the big.
By the way, boy. I'm not picking my nose. I'm itching it. Sorry.
No, you're totally fine. Filoni butchered EU Planet so much. I don't believe him when he said that George said that since he talked George so much into he was hesitant about. I think I'm getting the gist of what you're saying
I
there.
think it was back on the Moraband subject, which
Yeah.
yeah.
It's impossible to know, who chose
So
what.
like with your painting, my fiance is very like about Star Wars stuff. So every time like somebody like for Christmas and birthdays and stuff, all of her family members will go through her and be like, "Hey, would Tyler like this?" And she'd be like, "No, no, no, yes, no, no, no." Or her family would be, "Oh, I found this really cool boba thing. I think Tad would like it." And she'd be like, "No, he's got a black undersuit. The armor's too green. That's the wrong boba. Nope."
I love it. I
you know.
love that. It gets like I think that like similar to your situation, I think that Kylie was the one who originally had said to her. I remember him getting mad about this one night, and so I don't think that's the right name. And I think that's like what made my mom come down and go, "What's the name of this thing?" Like I saw her poking through my Essential Guide to the Force book, like the source book. I saw her flipping through it. I was like, "What are you doing?" She's like, I'm just looking. She likes Star Wars, but like not like how I like Star Wars. She's like flipping through it and stuff. And I was like, okay, that seems suspicious. Like that you're looking through this. It seems like you're up to something. Hashtag not my Mandalore.
Yeah.
I would love to. Again, we've talked. I say this every single time you're on stream. I want to experience you watching The Mandalorian. Like I want that so bad. If I could get, I would want, if we should make this like a goal on your Patreon.
Oh no.
That like, if we could get like a high enough donation to get you to watch The Mandalorian, we'll do it all in one go. You just watch the whole thing, and then we get your unfettered thoughts on it. Because how well versed are you like in the TCW Mandalorian lore?
Well, I mean, I forced myself through it at least twice. Once the first time when I was a kid as it was coming out, and then the second time when I was writing those TCW doesn't fit videos. So probably more than I'd like to be.
Like what are some like the stark differences between TC? Because again, I'm not that well versed in Mandalorian lore. So like, what's like the big outside of like the Mandalorians being pacifist?
I actually wrote a short about this, and well, about a certain part of this that I haven't recorded yet, and it was probably going to be published sometime next week. But it was a short about like what happened to Mandalore's mask, and in it I write, well, while we don't understand what happened to Mandalore's mask physically, I headcanon that Candor Sordo kind of, after he put it in his armor, said, "Yeah, no more Mandalore's mask." But I feel like I said that the Mandalorians kind of like they realized that the whoever has the magic object is leader thing is kind of a stupid way to pick the leader.
Sure.
And
yeah.
I feel like and so that's why Mandalore's mask got phased out. And then they come in with this dark saber now, and I'm like, this completely negates why they threw out Mandalore's mask, because now it's the same concept, but only the person holding the dark saber is now Mandalore. Again, another stupid way to choose a leader. That
and like even like because this was Skooma, like he put me onto this, was in Boba Fett, the Boba Fett show. The Mandalorian Din Djarin ignites it, and it's got weight to it. I was like, wait, what? I was like, is that like a thing? Because I was like watching like some of like the Maul stuff like in TCW where he's using the darksaber. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, there's no weight to this thing. And Skooma was like, yeah, it's like a completely new added feature to it. Is that like the lightsaber is like fighting against you using it. And the Mandalorians that are in The Mandalorian, like the ones that are hanging out with what's her name? Katie Sackhoff's character.
Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan, thank you. The ones who are hanging out with her, they seem like so like not that engrossed in the culture. And so that's like a thing of like in the new Mandalorian stuff that they just kind of like noped out. They're like, all right, well, we're just going to go fuck off and go do something else now because we don't think that you're that good of a leader. And now Bo-Katan and like Din Djarin or whatever, she's like been introduced to like his weird cult sect. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe these guys aren't so bad. So it's like, even in the Mandalorian culture that they've developed in the show, the Mandalorians don't care about it anymore. Like they're
Right.
like, I don't give a shit who has a dark saber. Like I'm just gonna go off and drink and be a bounty hunter out there in the world.
Well, that's how the Mandalorians in the expanded universe operated. They didn't give a shit about Mandalore's mask anymore, and they started. All right, well, let's actually choose our leaders based off of actual merit and their ability to lead. You know.
Yeah, I mean, like that's sort of how you would want not whoever the dude that's strongest enough to like yank a lightsaber out of another guy's hand. That's
Right.
not a good way to pick a
Well,
leader.
because
But
then you get a situations where Darth Maul is now Mandalore because he has the dark saber, and when you get into Mandalorian culture in the expanded universe, you find that Mandalorians are extremely distrustful of Force users. So, why would any of them follow a Force user into battle? Beats
I
me.
mean, like even in the other instance in the expanded universe, like where that did happen, like during the Knights of the Republic War,
Yeah.
like that micro series or whatever, like the Mandalorian Knights. Even then, they were like, "We don't care what happens to you."
Right.
They're like,
Yeah.
we get it, you're on our side, but if you died, we wouldn't like be that bummed out about it.
And can you blame them? Like Ulic Qel-Droma almost killed off the Mandalorians in the Great Sith War.
And it wasn't even that long ago.
No, and then Revan at Malachor 5 almost completely obliterated
Doing some casual war crimes.
Then Galadran, Dooku wiped out most of the true Mandalorians.
Lightsabers always had a gyroscopic effect that makes it harder for non-force sensitives with slower reflexes than force wielders. I mean, I understand that, but it's like it seems like it's physically heavy. Like it drops down because you can't bear the weight of it. Because like you see like Han Solo ignite a lightsaber, cutting open the tauntaun to jam Luke in there, and like it doesn't. I don't know. It did seem like a weird added like aspect to like that lore.
Well, when you watch Vader and Luke fight in Empire Strikes Back, it does feel like with like Luke strikes, it almost feels like he's hefting it, you know?
Yeah, that's
so maybe that's
there's
where
something
that
to
comes
be
from.
said for. I don't know because like when Luke ignites it, you can see him like holding it like this.
Yeah.
Din Djarin will light it. He's like, oh fuck, like it's
Oh,
like
really?
physically
Okay.
dropping out of his hands.
Okay.
So,
That's a
and then
little
Empress Renesmee, sorry to bother you, but can you link the Fallout YouTube channel? I can't find it. Here, I'll post that. Actually, Skooma, could you do that for me? That way I don't have to get out of this tab. Skooma, you're an admin still, right? I'm not actively removing you as admin like I was with Eddie.
You're paying him, right? This is a lot of BS to go through.
Dude, I mean, like Skooma, he did a bunch of artwork for the Fallout stuff, and such a good dude. I was like, okay, well, how much do you want to be paid? He's like, well, I don't know. And then so I told him the amount. I was like, well, I'm just gonna pay you this. Just send me your whatever. He goes, are you sure? And I was like, yes, dude. I was like, get paid for the work you've done. You're too good, like to not get paid for this. So yeah, Skooma, he's the moment I can put him on payroll, I would.
You're an all-star. Come on, get paid.
Greetings. I'm guessing there's a way to pronounce that.
Sombraptor. Hey.
I'm guessing there's a way to pronounce that last word there in Mandalorian that I don't know.
Vode.
Thank you. I wanted to throw in I've heard you say it a million times, like that greeting you do at the beginning of every single
Sukui Gar.
Sukoi Gar?
Sukui Gar.
Sukoi Gar?
Sukui Gar.
Dude, I'm so bad at this. I've never been able to because I hear like you saying those things, and I think that is it in yours or the Deep Core where they have like a thing where like learn Mandalorian?
Mine, that's mine.
Yeah. So I looked at some of that stuff in there and I was like, I don't know what the hell is happening here.
Well, if it helps, there's pronunciation
for
guides in the back of the book, but
I have to do that with there's like certain like planets and stuff like that or character names that like I don't know how to pronounce. Like we've seen things you only ever see written. Yeah. And I'll go on the this is like the other good thing that Wikipedia is good for is there's like a pronunciation guide on some of those characters. Sometimes I'm like, oh, thank God. There's like there's the ship that they use in Dark Times.
Uh-huh.
I still to this day, I re-recorded that script over and over and over again because every time I said the name of that ship, it sounded different than the previous time I'd done it.
Oh, and they'll call you out. They'll call you out on it.
That's the thing. That's some of the comments that I get. Like, I will get like I have the hardest time pronouncing Padme.
Padme.
I always want to say Padme.
Padme.
Because it feels like there's another vowel there. It feels like there's another
And when you're recording,
something that should be extra there.
When you're recording, for some reason that I can't explain, but when you're recording, everything like is harder to speak, and I can't explain why. But I've done like different things like 50 times to the point where I like start getting like, come on, I need to get this.
It legitimately like ruins your mood. Like I was recording, I blasted out like 3 scripts for Barb's Basement, and then I made like 2 or 3 for Barb's Vault.
Mm-hmm.
I doing them for Barb's Basement now. I'm pretty good at it. Like I can generally get through it like once or twice. But like with the Fallout stuff, I don't know why. Like I'm like I'm like fumbling over my own words and stuff. And after doing it 3 or 4 times, you're like, I'm gonna go do something else right now.
Well, there's times where I will rewrite so I can actually freaking say it. But
because like the way you would like write, we're getting like deep into dumb shit here. But like when like the way you like would write something just to be read, like in your mind versus like speaking out loud, they're different.
Yeah.
So like you need to like restructure sentences and stuff like that. So like it feels better to actually speak it. But sorry, we'll go back to the actual topic here. But yes, Skooma is the unpaid intern who's getting paid something. Yes. But when's Sombra Raptor's next video coming out? I feel like it's been a minute since I've seen from him.
Yeah, it's been like a hot couple years.
Yeah, because like the last one I think was like the
History of the
Mandalorian one that I saw.
Well, Sam and I were actually collaborating on a huge, like, completely in-depth Clone Wars multimedia project timeline where we both kind of narrate it.
Hell yes.
And we wrote, so we have the timeline out in Google Docs of the order of all the events, and we wrote maybe a year of the 3-year conflict. But we just kind of both. I launched my Patreon, and then I got swamped with commissions. I still have like 3 commissions I'm trying to get out right now. One is currently is already done, but it was supposed to post last Wednesday. It got a copyright strike. I sent in a what do you call it? A dispute, and they're taking their sweet time trying to review that. So
that's like one of the it's one of the upsides to having a brand manager on YouTube. I have a quote unquote brand manager. Mm-hmm. They're super nice. They're very lovely. Every time I've emailed them, they've been very, very courteous. There's just like only so much they can do. Like they can't like answer a lot of my questions and stuff. They're like, well, sorry, I'm just all shrugs on this. But one of the upsides to having a brand manager that is assigned to you from YouTube is every copyright strike that I've gotten that is legitimately bullshit. Like they can get rid of it. There's been other times where like Lego Star Wars won't let me turn off the main intro song. So I'm like, all right, well that video's fucked. There goes that. So
yeah.
There's some things that you just can't get around, but like there's like a lot of just like Russian bot farms out there that just will go through and copyright strike stuff and claim the ad revenue from it and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll email my person and see if like, hey, look into Tad Larkin stuff for me. The other times I've asked for other people, they've been like, I'll look into it, and
it's a fair use thing, and I've argued it before on one of my past videos on Captain Fordo. They did the same thing, flagged actually the same exact clip too. And in my dispute, I was like, the same exact thing happened on my other channel in another video, and you guys dropped the dispute. So,
what's that video on again? Like what's the subject matter of it?
For this one, it's a commission. Somebody wanted me to redo my General Grievous biography.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So there was a clip from the original Clone Wars series that I used, and that got flagged. And I'm like, I've used this exact same clip before and never had any problems. It falls under fair use. So
yeah,
and they're just gonna run out the clock. But
I just wanted to comment on JT's comment right here. Somebody said Clone Wars. I've had multiple conversations with JT where I've talked about how TCW doesn't fit into the expanded universe, and we got like into like a heated debate about it one time. I was like JT, there's no way you're gonna change my mind. This is not going to happen.
Oh, just send them around this. Send them over to my other channel.
Yeah. I should have just linked him that, been like, okay, we're done talking about this. But no, I love JT's another one of the good basement boys. Barb, why do I love my site did this for a long time. A lot of people have done this. they they don't call me Brian. They just call me Barb.
Yeah,
And
I was wondering. I'm like, why is everybody asking Barb questions? She's not even downstairs with you.
it's just I love it though. I find it hilarious. But why do you think that George sold to Disney? Because he got brutalized by fans. He he probably didn't have the juice anymore like to make any new movies. Like he probably didn't have like the how should I phrase it? Like the energy. He probably didn't have the stamina to actually like go through the process of making another Star Wars movie.
And he's
And
fucking old.
he wanted to keep his people employed. So
Yeah.
it's like I don't fault George Lucas for selling
Me neither.
Star Wars.
No.
He had people that worked for him and he wanted to keep them employed and wanted to make sure they were taken care of because he's a very good dude in that way. He's done like a lot of very good like charitable work since
Yeah.
becoming a billionaire.
I was gonna say a lot of the 4.05 billion he donated.
He's got that he got paid like I think that this is another thing that I see from people that I maybe wanted to address really really quickly is people I'll see them saying that the sequel trilogy was like an objective failure, like it lost Disney money. Like that's just
No.
factually incorrect. You can argue the quality of the movies for sure.
Oh yeah.
But Disney didn't buy Star Wars all straight cash. They bought Star Wars and then they gifted George Lucas stock options.
Oh
And
really?
The one half of it was like $2.2 billion. The other half of it was Disney stock.
Oh
So
really? Huh.
so A, they didn't pay $4 billion out of pocket for it, and B, they made their money back on the first movie. So like that's something that like I say what you want about Disney. I will 100% like shit on Disney any day of the week, but
Oh yeah.
the sequel trilogies it made a shitload of money. Like undeservedly so. It made a ton of money. But like it's just like you're arguing from a bad faith point of view.
Right.
Like you can say what you want. Like a lot of companies like are like on an economic downswing right now. The stock just like tanked for like the fourth time in my life. So
yeah.
when I graduated from high school, the economy collapsed, and then it did it again, and then it did it one more time. I'm just like, okay, can this stop happening for like 5 fucking minutes? But
yeah, it happens.
yeah, he got $2 billion in cash, which he donated to the impoverished schools, and $2 billion in stocks, which is now worth $14 billion.
But yeah, that
Damn,
goes
dude.
back to one of my things I was saying earlier, where people don't look at things objectively anymore. They try to take facts and twist them to their own points of view to
For sure.
to kind of justify their beliefs, which I mean, no. That's all I got to say.
In like Siberian. To be honest, I'd love for Disney to fail, but they're just way too big at this. Yeah, I mean, like that, at this point, they're large enough where, I mean, first off, it's never going to go away. Like
Oh
Disney
no,
will
they
always
own
exist.
they own everything and you, just like Nestle, just like
Yeah. That's like that's the whole thing is, and I promise I won't make you talk about this specifically too much, but I hear people say like stuff like, oh, get woke, go broke. Like,
Oh, yeah.
no, that's not how like the economy operates ever. It's never really like gone that way. Like what they're doing, and Disney's very disingenuous about these things, is they probably are hiring people who really do care about X, Y, or Z, this specific group, yeah, whatever. But Disney as a corporation
they don't give a shit.
they do not give a shit about this stuff.
No,
they want
they
to just
don't.
appeal to the broadest audience possible and to get all those sweet, sweet Disney bucks.
Oh yeah.
He's using a lot of the cash from the stocks to build a museum of narrative art in Los Angeles. Dude,
I read about that. Yeah.
And then the line Xanatos spoke from Gargoyle springs to mind. Detective, this is such a deep cut. Detective, I'm the owner of a multinational corporation which is bigger than many countries you can name. I mean, that's like you're getting this like Illuminati shit at that point in time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was like, I don't want to make you comment on too much of this stuff. It's just that might be. We'll bring this all back around. I promise to.
Yeah. Well, I got a little bit of a comment on that after you read this thing from Zim here, but
the statement is wrong. It's go broke, get woke.
no.
I mean, this is something that I've always said about Disney is like they're not doing these things in actual good faith. people who probably work underneath of them probably are. Like they probably are doing that. And I hear people speak about like ESGs, like a big that's
What's
like a big
ESG?
talking point. It's environmental social governance.
Okay.
This is like a thing that like a lot of like mega corporations like do like in like their like the HR stuff. Like they'll put it up like, oh, like we're doing X, Y, and Z to be like a more inclusive corporation or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's probably, like I said, there's probably people who actually do give a shit about that stuff.
Yeah.
But the stockholders of like most of these organizations don't.
No, they don't.
They don't give a shit. They just want the thing to make money. That's it.
Right.
That's like the whole beginning, middle, and end of it. But yeah, Ted, go ahead. Say your thought.
Well, so being in my position where I stick to the more traditional Star Wars stuff, I stick to the expanded universe,
Old Testament Star Wars.
Yeah, and not really showing, like a liking to any of the new stuff. I get lumped in with a lot of unsavory characters that do believe in the whole woke stuff. And I was thinking about it the other day, and I think it's because in one of my videos I alluded to Asajj Ventress having an SJW style haircut. And I think a lot of people
That's definitely what lumped you in there.
I think a lot of people kind of took that and ran to think I was like some anti-woke, one of these fandom menace type people that, just doesn't care about the actual story, just wants all of the women and, diverse stuff out of the movies, which is completely not me at all. I was just using it as an analogy to describe her haircut, because back in like the 2016s, 2017s, a lot of the quote SJW types were wearing that hairstyle. Nowadays, a lot of Karens are wearing that hairstyle, so I could go back and remake that video and have it be fine.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I think that like you fell victim to the thing of you wear a mask.
I do, yeah.
You wear the helmet, and like a lot of like people who have like very unsavory beliefs, or they're saying like very like purposely inflammatory shit, they're also wearing a mask because they don't want their identity to be revealed because they're saying some like bad shit. You're like, I'm this character. Like
yes, my mask is a character. I'm Tad Larkin. He's the Mandalorian
I'm
historian.
your biggest simp, man. Like anytime I ever see someone speaking ill of Tad Larkin and anything, I'm like, you don't know this dude. Like you think that he's X, Y, and Z. He's like this type of guy. I was like, he's really not. I was like, I've never had a conversation with Tad where I've thought, like, if you were like a fandom menace type guy, I would never I would have never reached out to you. I would have never had a conversation. Like, clearly you're not that. Like, I mean, like anybody with like a functioning brain would know that.
Well, I mean, the expanded universe had a whole crap ton of diversity. It had a whole crap ton of, like actual strong female characters who had, actual character, traits other than just being a woman. We had LGBTQ characters. We had Juhani. We had
Juhani? God,
who's the Mandalorian? Who's the gay Mandalorian?
It's the one that
Boba
Fett knew, even though he was being like a weird incel dude in a different book.
It's in Legacy of the Force. Why can't I remember his name? I literally had a short planned for him too.
Is it because you hate Legacy of the Force?
No, it's just because it's just so unmemorable, really.
And then Skooma says Tad is hiding Leku under that helmet. And then Sam Raptor said, I can confirm beneath Tad's helmet is just another helmet.
Yeah.
It's a Russian doll situation where
it's a nesting doll, yeah. It's just infinite amounts of helmets.
And then I saw this coming up here that I wanted to bring up. Saw something Crate thought that you were hashtag Phantom Menace. Tad, by the way, that moniker has become so toxic, even Geeks and Gamers is ditching it. And yeah, like that may have been like where I'd seen some of that stuff, but like anyone who like views your channel on a regular basis, they know that's like not your shtick. No. Like they're fully aware of that. Like if anybody, you're making pure lore content. Like it's not, you're not injecting like any modern day shit into it.
No, and I'm not putting my opinions into it either. This is Tad presenting this information in universe from a neutral standpoint.
Yeah.
I might put like a little bit of flavor, like when Tad like talks about Jedi and stuff, he might put in some like little snide remarks, but that's because Tad's a Mandalorian and doesn't like Jedi.
Yeah.
You know,
You're
um,
space racist, which is fine.
it's a cultural thing of the character. You know, it's
Yeah,
not my actual
100%.
opinions. I don't. As much as I love Mandalorians, I don't hate Jedi in real life. I
Yeah.
just think the normal people of Star Wars with blasters are cooler because they don't have these magical powers, but can still do all of these amazing feats. But
I really do like love the Beskar stuff, like that whole like aspect of like their culture. I don't know if you've heard this line like from the Mandalorian, but like Din Djarin literally just says, "A Mandalorian weapons are a part of my culture." I was like, I want to know how Tad would feel about that exact line.
that's not entirely inaccurate to the expanded universe version. Expanded universe version
Is
of
that Wendy's, man?
Mandalorian. Yeah, I've been just eating crappy for the past like 2 weeks here, being in the South and eating all this wonderfully delicious but heavily greasy food.
It's
And
not meant
then,
for regular consumption. It's meant as like a
yeah.
treat.
And then coming back home being broke and having no free time to where it's just like, okay, Wendy's it is.
Was Beskar a thing in the EU? Scoomer, are you actually asking that right now?
Yes, it was. Beskar was actually created by the Expanded Universe. Beskar is the name for iron in Mondoa. And Mandalorian iron has the unique property, just like it does in the show, of being lightsaber resistant. Um, it's
Yeah.
also extremely valuable, and this was another short I had written too. The whole stuff with like the Mandalorian purge thing that also kind of happened in the expanded universe, but instead of being purged by the Empire, the Mandalorians were enslaved and forced to mine Beskar. And they used the
Okay.
Beskar to line the dungeon ships in which they captured Jedi during the purge. So that way they couldn't like cut their way out
Like
with a
the
lightsaber.
Empire enslaved them? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the Empire
Okay,
enslaved the
gotcha.
Mandalorians and forced them to mine Beskar.
That is like an interesting wrinkle in like the Disney stuff that I will say, like the bombing of they just nuke that planet to glass. That is interesting to me. Like those things I
Yeah.
find to be cool. But is there a religious aspect to the Mandalorians in the EU? Like is it like a or is it just a
So
cultural thing?
So in the Mandalorian Crusaders, back when they were Tong, before they introduced humans into the Mandalorian culture, they
Mm,
were a polytheistic race. They had three gods. It was Hod Haran, Kad Harangir, and I'm trying to remember the trickster god. Um,
Moses.
anyway, there were three Mandalorian gods in their pantheon. One was like the god of like wisdom, the other was like the god of like trickery, the other was the god of like brutal cunningness or whatever. I have to read through the bounty hunter's code again where it's outlined, but
Okay.
um, they kind of got rid of their gods over time and started worshiping war itself.
Mm,
And then that's when you get into the era with like Mandalore the Indomitable and Mandalore the Ultimate, where they go on these crusades. And Mandalore the Ultimate almost succeeded in crushing the Republic if it hadn't been for Revan. Um,
yeah, and that's like fuck. I feel like Zach and I were talking about that like somewhat recently. Like Zach hasn't been like on Bar's Basement for like a minute, or he's been like really busy with like external life stuff. But
yeah,
we like had linked up and we were just hanging out in the basement, and yeah, we actually had like a few conversations about that like in general. And my wife was like, "You're not even doing Bar's Basement stuff, and you can't shut the fuck up about Star Wars. We're just hanging out just for like the fun of it, and we're like, well, okay, but here's this thing about Star Wars, like that just like jogged that memory in my brain."
no, it's good fun. Like I basically live and breathe Star Wars too. Like, oh, it's funny. Back on the pronunciation thing, my fiance and I were at a con, and I bought like this cool like comic book pack that had Darth Vader and Prince Shizor, and it came with one of the issues of
Mm,
not Dark Empire, Shadows of the Empire.
yep.
And I remember the lady was reading it off because she was going to check it off of her inventory, and she's like, let's see, you're buying Prince Darth Vader and Prince Zizor, and I'm like, actually, it's Shizor. And my fiance turns to me and she goes, "Honey, I don't think she gives a fuck."
I love that story. I live for that stuff. It makes me feel so good.
And then I just felt bad for the rest of the day.
But I wanted to address Dream's comment here. I believe you made this helmet, correct?
So the actual casting for the helmet I did buy online.
Okay.
But I sanded it. I cut out the visor part. I put in my own visor. I painted it. I weathered it. I'm actually not quite done weathering it. I have to do what's called black washing, where that kind of simulates like putting like dirt and stuff on it. I
Okay.
just don't know how to do it, and I've been too afraid to. But I was actually talking to some Mandalorian mercs at one of the conventions I went to, and I'm gonna try it out this summer. But I'm gonna try it out. I have two helmets actually, so I'm gonna try it out on my old Mark One. That way, if I screw it up, it's not on my main Mandalorian Mercs approvable helmet.
Yeah, what are the so I've been working on like the convention planning stuff, and like there's like a lot of rules and regulations for like these folks
Oh,
that
yeah.
are like in these cosplay clubs. That's like a world that I was completely unaware of. Like Lucasfilm like will even like okay like the 501st and stuff like that to like go
Yeah.
out and do events and stuff, but there's like rules they have in place for like what they're allowed to do or what they're not allowed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And independent ones like are like the Mandalorian Mercs, are they like I'm not officially licensed with Lucasfilm, but I'm assuming they have like some
I
form of like
believe
bylaws.
I believe they are affiliated with Lucasfilm. However,
Okay.
they do have their own regulations and like costuming. Yeah, Sam knows more about it because he's actually in it.
Hell yeah.
And I actually talked with his Rusalor, which is his like captain in his clan, at
Love
one of the
that, dude.
cons. Yeah,
Love
but
that.
Sam and I haven't actually met yet. I was actually over in his neck of the woods when I was flying home because I had like a 5 hour layover at BWI, and I was like, "Hey, dude, if you're by
BWI.
uh, Baltimore International Airport,"
Oh,
and I'm
gotcha.
like,
Gotcha.
"Hey, dude, I'm in your neck of the woods. If you're in the area and perhaps maybe flying out or picking somebody else at the airport, I'm stuck here for 5 hours. If you want to,
Let's go get a beer.
yeah, exactly. But someday we will meet and actually talk about you know Mandalorian stuff in real life. But
Dude, that's kind of my dream for a lot of like the convention like we're working on now. Like I just wish I could like get like free airfare for like all the people that I know just to come to it, just to be like we're all in the same place. Let's all like have a beer and like just talk about Star Wars stuff. You know what I mean?
is that the one that's going to be in like what is it? Not Berkeley? Is it Berkeley,
Uh,
California?
it's in California now. It was just on the tip of my tongue and I lost it.
It starts with a B.
Burbank.
Burbank.
Burbank. I was like that like threw my brain off. But yeah, that's one that's gonna be over there.
Because I was interested in it, and then I saw Burbank, and I'm like,
It's a bit of a trek. I mean, even from where I am at, but we there's like some of the guests that we have like coming along on that we've already got like 100% committed to the convention. Randy Stradley, the former head of Dark Horse, he was there, oversaw like the getting the rights to getting like licensing rights to publish
Oh,
all the
really?
Star Wars stuff.
Wow.
I'm so interested in talking to that guy
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I'm sure there's like NDA stuff there that he's like not allowed to like talk about, but
True, true.
I would love to like have a conversation with him about like what's like the comings and goings of like writing stuff that's coming out during the prequels releasing,
Mhm.
like the Republic comics were coming out like just before like the very first issues that were coming out were just before I think episode 1 came out, where Ki-Adi-Mundi had like a pink red lightsaber and stuff like that. Like
And Mace Windu had a blue lightsaber.
exactly, I would love to like get like his take on how stressful is that, like making comic books set during a time period where historically authors were not allowed to discuss the Clone Wars in
Right.
general. Like that was like a hard rule for George Lucas, and that's why like in the Thrawn trilogy, I love that like that weird little disconnect there where they're like, oh well, like you know during the Thrawn trilogy stuff, like they were talking about the clones attacking the Republic.
Mhm.
Like it was just close enough that it could be considered, you know,
Well, they fixed that with one of the last few issues of Republic, the Siege of Selukami, or
So Luke, am
Salukumi.
I?
Salukami, the Siege of Salukami story arc. That's where they kind of fixed
Yeah,
that one.
yeah, and I would love to like get like how did like they pick and choose authors for these things, and like was it? I want to know like what happened during the Disney buyout. Like how did they get the news? Like yeah, this thing that was like really carrying Dark Horse for a long time.
Yeah.
Get fucked, nerds. We're taking it away from you. And then IDW didn't work out. Then Lucasfilm was like, hey, remember Dark Horse? What are you guys up to? You guys busy? You guys want to start making stuff for us again, or like what's going on? But Panda Man, I see you. I see you making comments here. I want really quickly. I'll scroll back up to what you said. Brian, did you get bullied as a kid relentlessly until until probably like my. I'll give you a very very brief origin story on Brian. What happened to me was got bullied relentlessly up until like my sophomore year of high school. Got sponsored by Nike skateboarding, and then all that stopped. Then all of a sudden everyone was like, "So you have free Nikes, huh?" Yeah. All of a sudden, then Brian was real cool. Up until then. I was being called slurs and shit. So yeah.
Oh wow.
Get fucked, high school bullies. But I wanted to go back up here to my set. Where'd your question go here? Question for Tad. What is your most hated lore change since Disney took over?
I can answer that actually, and this is so minuscule and compared to like everything else they've changed, like including the Mandalorians being pacifist in TCW.
Yep. Your favorite change.
Right? What if for whatever reason, and I can't explain why, it really bugs me that they made the Death Star run off of lightsaber crystals.
I get that. I understand.
Like that's not they don't use that as a power source. They did use a large crystal for the focusing lens of the Death Star, but they didn't use it to power it. And that really, really irked me. And then they continued on with this idea to where the Star Killer base, I don't know if this is actually canon, but I remember reading that they made the Star Killer base actually Ilum.
Yep, that is accurate.
That really just like actually makes me irrationally angry.
It hurts my spirit, like
to the point where I'm laughing, but like I'm like, you know.
Like I understand. I totally get where you're coming from with like the Death Star stuff using kyber crystals. That's just stupid. But I do like the new lore that they kind of introduced with kyber crystals, like that they're sort of like they're semi-sentient in the Force type of thing. I'm cool with that. But like just putting a real big one inside the Death Star, I'm like, dude, no, come on.
Yeah,
like, that's just you're going to step beyond there. Like that's a little bit too much.
But that's my only thing. A lot of the stuff that's in the new expanded universe is pulled from the old expanded universe anyway. So it's like,
and that's there's like a couple things that were sort of unclear, like during the sequel trilogy coming out, was the planet they blew up in episode 7 was not Coruscant. It was Had Abaddon, because somebody in Lucasfilm was like, absolutely not. You are not blowing up Coruscant. You're out of your fucking mind. Like that was J.J. Abrams' like original thought, because he's from that school of filmmaking where they were like, oh, the prequels are trash. Like that's not actually Star Wars. So his opinion was, well, I'm just gonna blow up the planet that was like the main planet in the prequel trilogy. And thank God someone was like, no. Just like put a stick between his spokes as he was going right up to it. And then Connor, Big Crystal go brrr. It's my boy Connor, man, the myth, the legend. He's one of my good homies. And then Ted, can you see these comments when I pull them up?
Yes, I can see them.
Okay,
I've been referencing them
whatever my site's asking here.
I agree, Tad. Lightsaber lore changes are my most hated, and it makes no sense how Ilum was converted into a freaking super weapon without the New Republic's knowledge. Yeah, like. Granted, Ilum's remote enough because it's almost kind of in the unknown regions area, but I feel like you'd notice, like, hey, who's gouging this huge hole out of this planet here, and how are they doing that?
That was like that's still an ongoing issue in Disney canon, was like the scaling of the universe makes no sense. Like it's like the First Order in episode 7 is like shown to be like a fringe military group, and then all of a sudden they're not, and they're the entire like galaxy wide government. I'm not convinced either one of these governments had more than like 30 people in each of them.
To be fair, Star Wars has always had a scaling problem. Like How many clones do you think were in the Grand Army of the Republic? I
I've
know
heard
the actual.
200,000.
So that was the amount of clones that were at the Battle of Geonosis. What do you think?
No.
I know this answer. I don't know if you do. What do you think is the actual amount of clones in the entire Grand Army of the Republic?
1.5 million?
You're close. It's 3 million,
That's 1.5, 3 million clones.
which makes no freaking sense whatsoever.
I can't tell if that's too much or too little.
It's far too little.
I mean, for like a galaxy spanning war.
Yeah.
Because like how many people did they have in the U.S. military?
Probably about the same amount.
That makes sense for like a planetary government, but not for like a galaxy spanning one.
Yeah. The Essential Guide to Warfare says that the Grand Army of the Republic is like 3 million clones. Or it might be 3 billion. Or I can't remember if it's 3 million
3
or 3
billion feels like a ton to order
That's
from
not,
just one planet.
That's not for a galaxy.
Well, I mean, if it's all just being done on Camino, like how big are those facilities that they would be able to churn out that many?
Well, in the Expanded Universe, there was more than one cloning facility. They had Camino.
Okay.
They also had Syntax 2 on Coruscant. And then it's theorized that some clones were churning out of Mount Tantus as well.
Oh,
Yes.
I would be into that because I have like a weird love for Wayland overall. Like I just love the way it's described in the Thrawn books, and then they return to that. This is why you guys have heard me say it before. I'm going to say it again. Star Wars Legacy is the perfect bookend to Star Wars because they're like, boom, here's Wayland. I was like, fucking Wayland's in this. Holy crap! Like so many like little nods and stuff. And then Sombraptor, it's 3 million by Travis's numbers.
Yeah. Okay. He confirmed yes. And the Essential Guide to Warfare carries that over too. I don't know why they didn't retcon that out of all the other things they retcon from the Clone Wars multimedia project, but that's the one thing I wish they did retcon.
Okay, yeah. By the way, when do you need to head out?
What time is it now?
I think it's 10 for you, maybe.
Oh, nobody's been bugging me yet.
Say if you can go a little bit longer, we can go a little bit longer. I'm cool.
I'd like to maybe go like 30 minutes longer if we can.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know that I could talk until the sun blows up. But yeah, I want to come back up here to the dream here. Barb, a question. What do you think the future of Star Wars is? I have no idea. They've alienated so many people. Star Wars isn't dying, but it's been very damaged. They keep burning bridges. I mean, I would agree that people were using, and again, I won't be on this topic for too long because it's not Tad's forte, but so streaming numbers have gone down a little bit, but I don't think that's specific to just a Disney problem. I think that's like an issue of everyone has a streaming service now.
Yeah.
When before it was like there was Netflix, Hulu, and then there was Disney Plus, and then Peacock had their own thing, and then HBO they have their streaming service. Like,
yeah, it's getting
so many
annoying.
people. It's like it's expensive as having cable again. So
yeah,
I think that where Disney sees their future going with Star Wars is going to continue to be via Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
It will continue off of like their ideas, their thoughts, their all the other stuff, which I mean, I don't want it to be bad. Like I'm rooting to actually feel something from the things that I'm viewing. The only reason why we have Disney Plus is because it came free with our Verizon.
I'm mooching off my father's, so
I mean, yeah, like don't pay for it if you don't have to, but like
oh no.
Yeah, I see it like continuing to go. There's been people were really high on The Mandalorian season 1 when that came out. Like, oh my god, this is the best thing that's ever happened to Star Wars, thank God. Mandalorian season 2 came out, people were like, okay, that wasn't quite as good, but they had the big moment of Luke showing up. Then Book of Boba Fett came out, that was like hot garbage water, and then the Kenobi show came out, which split a lot of people. The future of Star Wars is definitely going to be in the hands of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni.
Yeah,
more than likely, and like they've canceled like every movie project they've even come close to announcing. Like Rogue Squadron, that one's not happening. I would be shocked if like the Taika Waititi Star Wars movie was still happening. Rian Johnson was supposed to have a trilogy, and honestly, that's the only one of those Star Wars projects that will come out in theaters I would care about is a Rian Johnson movie.
Why?
Because Rian Johnson's not a bad director. He was a bad choice for Episode 8.
Ah,
That being said, I place a lot of the blame on where the current canon is on J.J. Abrams and less so on Rian Johnson.
right.
Like, J.J. Abrams hard wrote everyone into a corner by all the Jedi are dead again. Luke's hidden on an island. All right, where do you go from there? You literally have no other options, like on like what to make that wouldn't be just like super paint by the numbers, like predictable. The Last Jedi is bad in a lot of a lot of the things that happen in The Last Jedi are not good, but acting's fantastic. The visuals are incredible. Rian Johnson makes good movies externally from Star Wars. So if he made a trilogy of movies that were not the Skywalker saga, I think that he probably would have been like incredibly. People would have loved him. People would have really loved what he had made. It just was not right for the middle movie in the sequel trilogy. In each of those movies, they just contradict one another. Episode 7 came out, ignored all the plot progression in episode 6. Episode 8 came out, ignored all the plot progression in episode 7, and then the same thing with 9.
Gotcha.
So realistically, where that's just where it's going to go. It's for you love him or you hate him, but Dave Filoni is for sure going to be in charge of a lot of those things.
Right.
That's not reassuring at all.
And that's
Sorry,
why I'm
Max.
going to stay right here underneath my little expanded universe rock.
Yes.
You're all welcome to join me over at Mandalore.
Yeah, there you go.
We've got
now,
cookies. We've got hot chocolate.
What about the lives of? I won't get into like talking shit on any other Star Wars YouTubers, but Mike Zero, if you watch his stuff, stop. Just stop it right now. I don't know that much about Lore Star, but hard to disagree. Ryan Soma's dude. Knives Out is fucking incredible. One of my favorite movies of like probably the last 5 years. So good. Like, I mean, I know there's a lot of hate for Rian Johnson because of the Star Wars movie that he made, but Looper was very solid. Knives Out was great. Glass Onion was a fun romp. So, yeah, that's just like where I am with it.
What I will say though is, I do feel like before we die, Star Wars will be rebooted again.
Oh yeah, 100%, for sure. Well, hopefully before we die. Hopefully we live for longer than the next 45 minutes. But yeah, I mean, I think that it will for sure at some point get rebooted, but I think that like that formula of, I think they were modeling themselves off of the MCU where they're like, well, we'll pull from things that we liked from the expanded universe and incorporate this in our movies. The thing is that Marvel has alternate universes, they have parallel universes, they have different characters, like where they take on the mantle of X, Y, and Z superhero. That does not work for Star Wars because it was always one continuous continuity. There was what if stories that were very obviously not set in the same universe.
I don't know. Can you tell that to all the fucking clickbait articles around there? Because if I see one more goddamn Skippy article, I will go ballistic.
The Skippy, the Jedi droid stuff, the Force sensitive droid stuff drives me fucking nuts. There's so many, like, because there is just as dumb of stuff in current canon as that. Like, and that's like that's not a canon character. That's like
it was never canon. He was never canon. Shut the fuck up.
Was that Tag and Binks?
Tag and Bink wasn't canon either.
I'm saying, was Skippy from that?
He was from the Tales comics, which were not canon, and Tag and Bink were also from there as well.
I feel like a reboot is coming in the next 15 years. I wouldn't say maybe the next 15 years, but like probably the next 20 or so. Like I can never say never type of thing, but yeah. There's just as dumb of stuff as like a Skippy the Jedi droid. In current canon, there's a character that's just a sentient rock, and he's written to be funny. That's the whole point of his character is that he will do things and there's no explanation for how he does them. Like it's Geo, they're like, oh, Geode jumped into hyperspace. How? He's just a rock. So like, not everything needs to be super serious, but like things like that can exist that are fun, and that's the whole point of Tales. Like, Skippy, that's just a fun character. You don't need to really read it too much. It's just kind of like a ridiculous thing. Well, some of Tales was canon. Okay, Sound Raptor, see yourself out.
I misspoke. I meant infinities, but
yeah. Because like, what is it in Return of the Jedi? No, it's in the Empire Strikes Back one where Yoda throws the Death Star into Coruscant, just killing like most of the planet.
Yeah.
It's either in the Empire one or the Return of the Jedi one. One of them, Vader doesn't die. He's wearing a white suit. Like they're fun, but
Yeah.
they're pretty stupid.
There was my favorite one is when Chewbacca and Han crash land on Earth. Han gets killed, and Chewbacca ends up living in the forest as Bigfoot, and then Indiana Jones comes and finds the Millennium Falcon and the dead Han Solo inside the captain's seat.
Yeah, I mean, because like it's just that's like a fun. It doesn't always need to be so serious, but like
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the whole thing that I think was the idea with the sequel trilogy was they'll pick and choose from things, but Star Wars fans have never had that issue of having a multi-universe thing because that's never been in Star Wars prior, and I think that like they're in a position where they're always gonna have to like retcon the entire thing over and over and over again because it's if you introduce like a parallel universe like a multiverse to Star Wars, I would like hate that. I wouldn't want like if they continued the expanded universe in some way, shape, or form. I never want that to interact with Disney canon.
Me neither.
Ever.
And that's why people give me flack. Like for example, on a lot of the Star Wars Empire at War mods are because they're made by older people like me who grew up with the expanded universe. They're expanded universe based, but then there's some like Thrawn's Revenge where they'll sprinkle a little bit of Disney canon stuff in there, like not enough to like actually like, they're not adding like the Star Killer base or anything. They're adding like maybe like a Gozanti cruiser here and there from Rebels or like Artequins or like what's the thing from Battlefront, the new Battlefront 2, the Raider class Corvette.
I'm not sure. I only played through the campaign of that like 4 years ago. So
the Corvette they have, it's in there. But what pissed me off was they put new canon Thrawn with his pupils for the icon for Thrawn's ship, and they gave the Chimera that stupid tattoo that Thrawn would never put on his flagship because the real Thrawn would never want to reveal what his flagship actually is to the enemy by putting such a dumb identifying marker on it. Like stuff like that. I've been criticized for like pointing out stuff like that and saying, hey, I don't like this, but like if we're gonna have separate universes, we should keep it separate. That's
my like you're saying, like how people will kind of come at you for like one thing. You're saying I don't like this thing. I think that it's also this is another issue with like big corporate media is that you're on a team.
Yeah.
If you like Disney stuff, you're on the Disney team.
Right.
If you like Expanded Universe stuff, you're on the Expanded Universe team, and like you're rooting or whatever for. You can be critical of media that you like and still enjoy it. That's like something that I feel like is like completely lost on, we sound like boomers. Like with social media makes life go by so much quicker. Like things are very, very fast. They come and they go, they burn out way faster than they used to. Like Mandalorian season 2 came out. That feels like it came out last year. That was like in 2020. Like things just, they don't last for as long as they used to. So I think that that's like an issue that, like you have faced with people thinking that you're in the Fandom Menace stuff is because they see you expanding universe guy. He must hate everyone who likes Disney stuff and he must hate Disney. That's never been your opinion. Even in those videos you made, you're like, hey man, I don't hate it. I'm just saying.
I'm disinterested in it. It's derivative of the expanded universe and I'd rather keep reading the expanded universe. And to me, it just feels like it has, I'm not saying that the people writing the new canon don't have like heart or like, it doesn't feel like the soul that the expanded universe had is in the new canon. It doesn't, that's, and I know I haven't read a lot of the new canon. I've read a couple passages out of Aftermath just to prove how fucking horribly written, not even the book story is horrible, just how horribly written it is.
Yeah. You're not even the first person I've heard like have that criticism of it. Like Zach, independently of any of our conversations, he had read the Aftermath book before Blar's Basement was ever like even a thing, and we had talked about that one time when we were playing D&D, like getting prepped to play D&D. He was like, "Yeah, I read that Aftermath book, man, and it's just not good."
Yeah,
like he's like, it's the way that it's like formatted is just bad. So like
Yeah.
that was something that like, even Zach's not like as terminally online as I am. Like I'm always on Discord, I'm in people's streams, I'm watching YouTube, yada whatever. And even he was like, yeah, it just wasn't good. Like he was
Yeah.
completely uninfluenced by like outside sources or anything like that.
Right.
Uh,
And I've seen Rogue One, and I've seen like some footage from some of the new games and stuff. I've played the new Battlefront, not necessarily the campaign, but I liked playing online with people.
just a multiplayer, but yeah.
It was marginally fun, but what I was getting at is, yeah, I know I haven't really sampled a lot of it, but I still, from the little bit I have sampled, I feel like it doesn't have that same heart, you know. But
It's
I'm
difficult
sure the
to.
creators that are writing and creating stories for this are putting their heart and soul. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it doesn't have the same, like, I don't know, it doesn't have the same feel. I can't really explain it.
But. No, like I would agree with you there. Like it doesn't feel like it's like the little engine that could. Like it doesn't feel like this thing that's being run by people who are. I hate like hearing like people say like this exact sentence I'm about to say, but like when people are like, oh, they need to hire fans of Star Wars. There's a fine line that you would walk between someone being a fan of Star Wars and somebody who's legitimately trying to write a good story. And I feel like there's been like some overcorrecting there, like in not hiring people who have like people who had never read a Star Wars book prior to like writing one, stuff like that. It doesn't feel like it's necessarily being written by people who are fans of the expanded universe or the IP externally from like seeing the movies or just having them be in the zeitgeist. And that definitely felt like that was present in the old expanded universe. Like it felt like they gave a shit about this universe and like they spent 19 books developing characters in the New Jedi Order and stuff like that. It does not feel like that now, but as a part of that is that just me being older and I'm jaded by like having read these books for the entirety of my life and then having to read new characters set like in a different universe type of thing. But Disney buying out Star Wars, like that inherently makes it feel soulless just because of like, what Disney is.
All right.
I had the same experience as Zach. I read it back when it came out. I was very put off by it before I realized it was hated. Yeah, like if you're coming to that conclusion of like a book without being influenced by anybody else, that's how you know a book is bad. Because I've read some bad books and I finished them. I've gone all the way through them, and that was like one of the few books where I was like, I'm not reading this anymore. I'm putting this book down. I'm done with this. And I read through all the Jedi Search books and I don't even like them. I read through all of them like 2 or 3 times. Yeah, but yeah, we've said this before in several streams. There's no point in you having to read those things. You live under you rock, and I'll just like give you.
I'm not hurting anybody.
Yeah, I'll just give you the bibs and bobs of like what's going on in the
right, and
Disney canon.
I venture out a little bit. I'll peek out. I'll put my submarine periscope up and see what's going on, and then I'll come right back down.
You were like, oh, Darth Vader hallway scene. That was pretty cool. Okay, I'm going to go back down into the...
Okay, yeah, that was pretty cool. I did like
there's no denying that. Yeah.
The Rogue One space battle was pretty cool. I will say, I think the stupid Hammerhead cruiser from the Knights of the Old Republic trying to ram the Star Destroyer was kind of stupid, but...
Oh, I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Damn, it's been a while since I've seen that movie. Honestly, I mean, I didn't dislike Rogue One, but I wasn't like... oh my god, this is the best thing I've ever seen. I was like, yeah, it was like fun, but I'll probably never like really revisit it.
And like I said in the past, I disliked it because I was coming in from an expanded universe mindset, and I can't separate. It's gonna sound bad. This is gonna sound like I'm saying people who like the movie don't have brains, but I couldn't turn my brain off to enjoy the movie. No, if you enjoy the movie, that's fine. You do have a brain.
Yeah, but like you couldn't shut off like the years of fan service, not fan service, but like the fandom that you've been engrossed in. Yeah,
I couldn't shut off the knowledge of how the universe actually fucking works, which the people who made the movie clearly don't understand.
I mean, because I even feel like that movie was like heavily re-edited and redone. Like that was like a thing with like a lot of issues of like all these Star Wars movies when they were coming out was they were like movies by committee, like. Mm-hmm. Like a lot, like Rogue One, I think changed a ton, and like Han Solo completely changed directors. Like halfway, like 90% of the movie was filmed, and they changed over to Ron Howard and fired the other 2 dudes who were directing it originally. And I'm like,
oh really?
I'm like, how is there this much dysfunction in one of the biggest studios like on the planet? It just makes no sense. To be honest, there are toxic EU fans and there are toxic canon fans. The toxicity isn't just on one side. The majority of people are fine, but there's always a loud minority of crazies.
Yep,
100%.
I agree.
And it's finding that fine line between the both of them is. I'm in some like very Disney positive spaces as well, like just like reading what other people are saying. I'm not really participating in it that much.
Yeah,
But there is such a thing as toxic positivity,
yeah.
where you're too willing to shut off your brain, your critical thinking, because you want to like it, even though it's just objectively not that good. So
Right.
that definitely does happen, and probably in the expanded universe as well. But
Oh, definitely. Like you just heard me complaining about, not complaining, just saying that the 3 million number for the Grand Army of,
Yeah.
of the Republic is completely freaking stupid, given how vast the galaxy is and how large the Clone Wars conflict actually was.
I mean, the galaxy spanning conflict,
Yeah.
3 million. So that ought to do it. And we'll put the current U.S. military budget just directly into Star Wars, and that will totally track.
I feel like that wouldn't even, like, make up a fleet, let
There's
alone
no way. I mean, like,
let alone a whole galaxy spanning army.
I mean, imagine you're just like in your backyard and you see a Star Destroyer coming into the atmosphere. That's a world-ending event for anybody experiencing that. That's like, holy, oh my God, that's this. We're all gonna die. We all need to like just give up on what we're doing right now and just accept death. Like, there's no way that like that would cover. How many people like even like work on a Star Destroyer? It's got to be like a crazy amount of people.
I
Just to
could
keep one of
go
those
get my
functioning.
Incredible Cross Sections book and tell you, but I don't feel like getting up right now.
You always have an answer, and then
It's probably
my
around
site,
a
you're
couple-
getting content. Shut up and be happy. That is a bit of the mentality. Like the majority of canon fans I've met are totally open to trying out the EU. Most people don't exist in the extreme Legends versus canon. Yeah, like we're whenever we're talking about those extremes, it's a way lower number of people than people are just casually enjoying something.
Well,
But
that's why I have the Disney Canon discussions tab on my Discord channel. And somebody actually asked me the other day, it's like, why did you have this? I'm like, because people like it and enjoy it, and I want people that come here that also like Disney Canon be able to go and talk about it.
And it's like you don't want to feel like you're gatekeeping somebody who possibly could. Like if somebody like has not read any Legend stuff, Expanded Universe stuff, they go into your Discord and then they're being like, oh, I read like the High Republic stuff. Then you just get like sworn by people who like absolutely just like shit on them. You don't want to gatekeep them. Like you want to like be of the assumption that like if you like that, you'll probably like this too. Like you want it to be inviting.
I want everybody who has the most marginal interest in the Expanded Universe I want to be able to like show that to them. I want to show them like, look how cool, Star Wars, used to be back in the day. And I'm not saying like Star Wars isn't cool now, but like look how cool it was. Like I'm trying to preserve this timeline for future people to enjoy,
Yeah, it's like there's no worse death than like going out with a whimper.
Right.
Like
and
having the EU
this is
just
the way to
die
keep
in
it relevant.
silence. Exactly. And that's like sort of like I remember who it was that asked, but like how is our channel like at 34,000 subscribers and we mostly talk about like Legend stuff. I think that there is like that interest there in like making YouTube shorts about Expanded Universe content. My whole thing is I want it to be short and digestible for them, and that's why I'm always plugging Tad Larkin stuff, because I'm like, look, I'm just giving you like a taste, like a window shopping type situation, but there's a much grander universe here that is way more in depth than like what you go on YouTube, you type in Gray Jedi, first thing that pops up, guaranteed to be like the most clickbaity shit in the world. There's a deeper universe there that like you can get into and have those conversations about like how the Force works, or how like the Jedi actually function and stuff like that. And if I can use shorts to like segue into that for most people, that's like sort of the goal for me, at least. That's the only reason why I make shorts content. Like I hate making shorts content, but
oh my God, yeah, I'm right with you there.
I want you to keep making it though, because I want you to keep growing. I want you to get fucking huge.
Oh, I am. I like I said, I've got a couple written. I just haven't recorded any yet because I've just been busy not being home. So
Yeah, yeah. It's a sheer crime that the Young Jedi Knights and Jedi Apprentice are not being reprinted, but they have reprinted Jedi Quest. Yeah, one of my buddies here on YouTube, Star Wars Timeline, he had like a not a poll. What's the verbiage for it? Like a petition out to like get them reprinted because I mean like those books like they're like very very difficult to find. Like I think I found one of them like at half price books like 8 years ago or some shit.
Thriftbooks.com. I already have them bookmarked on my thing once I get money.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's God, and not to go on too much of a tangent here, but they just released like their most recent batch of essential like Legends collection or whatever it is they call it.
Yeah,
with like new book covers. They're pretty bad. There's like the majority of them like do look way worse than the original covers.
some of them are bad. Some of them are actually pretty good though.
I quite enjoy like the Bane ones because we got like that weird like CGI, you know, cinema 4D style like book covers for. I was like, these look
the old
bad.
Bane covers are pretty bad.
They're pretty trash. So like seeing all three of them like laid out, I'm like, oh damn, that's a thing of beauty.
For such an amazing book series, trash cover.
Yes, but there's a few of them like in the latest batch they're doing. I'm just like, those just look bad.
The Shatterpoint one I thought was pretty good.
Shatterpoint, yeah, they have Shatterpoint up. They have a more recent list of epic collections, not epic collections, but essential collections. After that, I think that may have been like 2 rounds ago.
The X-Wing ones have been pretty good so far.
Oh yeah, the X like Wedges. I have like Wedges Gambit or Gamble. Gambit. I have like that one back there. Like I started like rereading some like those. I was rereading I Jedi. It's about Cornhorn.
Oh yeah, I love I Jedi.
Yeah, I was just rereading through that recently. And I think that maybe we had mentioned this when we were during our last stream. It was so weird reading a Star Wars book from the first person perspective.
It's the only one that I'm aware of that is written in first person.
Like it had been like years since I even thought about I Jedi, and then when I opened it up, I was like, wait, what? Like you're used to seeing everything from like the omnipresent narrator, like kind of going through the things.
Right.
And then Skooma, I actually really like the original Bane cover. It's illustrated by an author who did the Aragon cover and a few covers. Okay, that's just an incorrect opinion I have, so I'm gonna go ahead and get you out of there. That's a no-go for me.
What I'm really wanting is them to make more unabridged Legends audiobooks.
Yeah. This was something that I was completely unaware of, but like, I think it may have been Skooma that was telling me this, that every book that's like published, there's like a version that's an audiobook for each one, like in the Library of Congress or whatever, like where it's not, there's no production value to it. They're just reading the words on the page because it's like a thing for like, blind people to like, to be able to like to absorb those. So I think that like I've gone on this, was this on our last conversation we were talking? Because I went on YouTube and like you can find like completely unabridged audiobook versions that people have just ripped from those libraries that the government commissions.
Yeah, but no, I want Mark Thompson doing his impressions.
Dude, Mark Thompson is excellent.
I think Del Rey should just keep him in a basement somewhere and just be like, all right, Mark, whip out another one. Here's Republic Commando. They need one. They need an audiobook.
He's so involved in like the Star Wars community too. Like he like on TikTok, he makes TikToks and stuff. I know.
Cringe. Oh, really?
Yeah, but he makes stuff on there and like he's very active in, like in the Star Wars community. Same thing with the dude who played Starkiller and Maul
Sam Whitmer.
TCW. Yeah, he's very like he like streams and stuff. Like he was just recently playing. I think I was watching a clip of him playing The Force Unleashed.
Oh, really?
Which has to be like a mind fuck for him.
I want to see that.
Yeah, like I'll look up his stuff. It may have been JT that had sent it to me because he's like a big fan of Sam Witwer. But I was gonna let you take this anti-Dream Stand United comment because this is something that you would put up on your Discord.
If Disney can make 2 seasons of Visions, doesn't that mean they're able to make 2 different timelines at the same time? Why not continue the EU? I think we touched on this earlier with the litigious aspect of it and the fact that they while they own the rights to it, they don't like technically like own a lot of the stuff that's come out. I mean, they get like residuals from it, but and this actually goes along with like how they're if you notice like with Book of Boba Fett and stuff like that, they're taking classic Star Wars characters and then they're redesigning them. That's not just like a story thing. They're doing that on purpose. So like say you have an action figure of Book of Boba Fett, Boba, and then you have an action figure of Empire Strikes Back Boba. The Book of Boba Fett action figure is going to give them more money because the action figure they're selling of the Empire Strikes Back, some of that goes back to George Lucas for residual stuff. So
Yeah, and like they changed the name of Boba Fett's ship, which I know like really pissed off a lot of people.
well, that was more of like a, again, with not wanting to say like the woke stuff, but you know that was done in the wake of that without proper understanding of why Boba Fett's ship is named Slave One. And anybody who's played Star Wars Bounty Hunter knows that there used to be multiple different slaves. There's Slave 1, Slave 2, Slave 3, Slave 4. They were Kuat Drive Yards. I can't remember. Fire Spray class enforcer ships. They're essentially patrol ships for the prison on Uivu 4. And when Django flew there to try, I can't remember why he was there, but it was one of the missions in Bounty Hunter. His ship, Jaster's Legacy, which looks suspiciously like the Razor Crest. If
the Razor Crest is long gone at this point. That's old news.
Yeah, I saw he's. We'll get on this later, but I saw he's flying an N1 Starfighter now, which is weird to me because they don't have a hyperdrive. But I'll get on that later. So then to get off the planet, he steals one of the fire sprays and he destroys all the other ones. But they're called Slave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because they are all slave circuited together because they operate as a squadron in tandem. And I don't know if Disney canon has slave circuits, but in the Expanded Universe, slave circuits allow ships to fly more synchronized. They allow them to enter hyperspace in a more synchronized manner. That way, like fleet ops are more smoother with fleets of slave circuited vessels. That's what happened with the whole Katana fleet.
As you about to say, that was a big thing in Thrawn was him getting all of them to go at one time. Because like with the Katana fleet, because he got in there with mole miners, I believe was like how he originally
he stole
circuited up.
Well, that was for the battle. Oh, sorry, I hit my mic there. That was for the Battle of Sluis Van. What Thrawn did was he stole mole miners from Lando's operation on Niklon, and then ended up using them to drill into some of the New Republic ships that were stationed at Sluis Van for refit. Because at this point, the New Republic was having a problem of, hey, we've kind of stretched ourselves out too far, so they had to refit some of their warships into like cargo vessels. Thrawn tried to use the mole miners to steal those, but that didn't work out. So then he went to his plan B, which was find the Katana fleet and just steal that.
It's like this mythical fleet that's like, and he's like, we'll just go solve this massive treasure hunt that's been going on for a long ass time. I love that. But Dream Stands United. This was something that I had seen on Tad's. It's either on your Discord or maybe your community page. But like, if they can make Visions, they 100% can make a full season of Visions that's just legend stories.
Semantically, they could, but they won't.
They 100% could, and no one would be mad about it. No one would be upset. Like, I understand that some things would need to be cut for time. I would gladly take a 20-minute long episode that's set at the tail end of the Yuuzhan Vong War, just seeing the climax of that war coming to an end. I mean, like, come on. Give it to me. Just give me what I want. Right. I want it so bad. And then there was one other thing. Did Dirge have the Mythosaur logo on him?
So yes, if there was a comic that had his origin story in it in a collection called Star Wars Visionaries, rather, not Visions. Yeah. I got confused for a second because we were just talking about Visions. Star Wars Visionaries, where it has his backstory, and we find that Dirge was actually trained by a Mandalorian named Jang, who we get the term
Okay.
Jang Eyes from, for which is like the symbols on Captain Rex's and Captain Fordos's helmets.
Okay.
Um,
This is all brand new information to me.
yeah, so the reason why Dirge hates Mandalorians so much is he one of his Jang, who he considered his mentor, was actually hunted by the Mandalorians and killed. So that's why, even though he has a Mandalorian mythosaur skull on his armor, and he has that hatred for Mandalorians, that's why that is. Because he was
Gotcha.
trained by a Mandalorian, and he wasn't really Mandalorian himself, but he had that.
He was in the
That was like
mix.
that was like just an homage, if you will, to his mentor.
Yeah.
But
And then Sunbraptor, I wanted to acknowledge you really quick. Legends Visions would be beautiful. The last Legends thing we got was Marvel 108, and at least there's SWOTOR. I actually just recently did a little opinion piece on SWOTOR, and both the Eternal Empire DLCs that came out were made after the Disney buyout, and that's why they make no goddamn sense. Is because they're like, well, the reins are off at this point. This is SWOTOR exists kind of in its own little bubble.
yeah, I know people that that view SWOTOR the same way I view TCW. With that,
I would probably put myself in that camp,
yeah,
even though I played probably 2,000 hours of SWOTOR. I don't really consider it hard canon to the expanded universe.
I feel like it takes a lot less finagling to to fit SWOTOR in with the expanded universe than it would for TCW, but
Yeah,
maybe it's because I haven't played. I've only really read the background lore of it. I've never played the games because I just don't have time to play MMORPGs really. But
it's a gameplay loop that it's designed just for you to do menial tasks over and over again. But the last two really really big expansions they did that were full on DLC, not just short story expansions. Those ones are almost impossible to integrate into the expanded universe. I think the main quests that happened with the original game coming out, totally fine. The stuff that came out afterwards, no.
Right.
How you doing on time, by the way, Tad?
Well, we should start wrapping up here, unfortunately. As much as I'd love to talk about Star Wars all night, but
no worries at all. We'll just wrap up a couple of quick questions here. Honestly, I don't trust Disney to continue the EU. I'd rather they not continue, but they've been really good at reprinting stuff, which is all I ask for.
I'm in that same boat.
Yeah, I mean, if they would have to bring back a lot of people to.
And like I said before too, I think I've said this on one of your streams before. I wouldn't mind adaptations, animated adaptations of great Star Wars Legends stories, as long as they're faithful. That's the problem.
I mean, as long as the main story beats get to where we're going, if it's mostly the same, I'm fine with that. If they change things for time, if they do one-off episodes and stuff like that.
I don't know, man. If I got an animated Thrawn trilogy and Thrawn has pupils, I'm flipping the table. Sorry.
Yeah, that's part of what makes him so. That's why he's intimidating to people, is because they're I literally don't know where this guy's looking. They're this dude's just peering into my soul.
I recognize that I'm a pedantic motherfucker, but it's just one thing I'm not gonna. I draw my lines and I draw them hard.
That I do agree there. Thrawn in Rebels looks weird. It looks bizarre. I totally agree. Tag, can you post a picture of your helmet in the server? I kind of want to digitally paint it. Dude, Skooma.
I actually have PNGs of me in my full armor. I can put.
Hell yeah, dude. Skooma, back when Zach and I were doing Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy stuff, he was busting out cartoons, comics of what we had done. I was like, damn, dude, you're quick as hell. Skooma really? Recently got an iPad Pro. He's the man.
I've seen a couple of them, the one that you have as your profile picture.
Yeah, Wilkins anime, dude. Honestly, yes. If we could get if they just gave that dude, here's $100,000, just make the Dark Empire, make it quicker, hire some people to help you out, that kind of stuff. I would be totally game for that because it's so faithful to what they're actually doing. Mm-hmm. And then what else do we have here? Wasn't Admiral Pelion Thrawn's pupil? Yeah, he was his direct. He was his direct line, his direct manager.
I'd say he was more of an understudy.
Yeah, because Pelion goes on to do like a ton of shit after
Well, Pelion
all
ends
the
up
Thrawn
becoming the supreme commander of the Imperial Remnant after the shit with,
stuff. Yeah,
after
and
Dala
he's
kind
involved
of
with the
united all the
GA as
warlords.
well. He was involved with the Galactic Alliance
Yeah, I mean,
in
he
later
was the
points.
one that ended the Galactic Civil War with the Pelion-Gaversum Treaty.
The man, the myth, the legend. Yeah,
He
like
wasn't he wasn't a stupid guy. He knew the Empire had lost. He knew to continue the Empire's survival, he would have needed to capitulate to the New Republic, or Galactic Alliance at that point. But
yeah, he's like, just give me this small section of space and we'll call it good.
yeah, and then he's involved with the GA government and Legacy of the Force, and then that doesn't really
Yeah,
work out for him. But I won't spoil.
yeah, no spoilers there. But I really love the Imperial, the remnant of the Imperial remnant in Star Wars Legacy, where they just have like the Bastion system essentially.
Mhm.
Love that. Like I love that. Like it's a whole functioning government. They're like, we got our 8 planets and everyone's pretty cool with it. Okay, so just let us do our thing. You guys worry about policing the whole entire galaxy. I'm just gonna make sure these 9 planets have enough food to go around.
Yeah,
That's
right.
essentially it. Wait a minute. We're talking about 2 different definitions of pupils. Canon gave Thrawn pupils in his eyes. Wait, we lost the thread there, I think. But sorry, just there's one last thing, and then we'll let Tad saunter off. Barb, what was it you said? You like the Denningverse or hate? I absolutely despise the Denningverse. I'm not like a psychopath about it. He's written good. He's written like one good Star Wars book.
I didn't mind Legacy of the Force. I mean, not Legacy of the Force. I didn't mind Tales of, oh my god, Fate of the Jedi.
Fate of the Jedi. Fate of the Jedi is like honestly probably where I was like done with the Expanded Universe. Like I just didn't like the Abeloth stuff. I
didn't mind it. It's when they started tying it in with TCW that I was like,
yeah. That's something that we should talk about on another stream at some point is how weird and wonky the Expanded Universe got there towards like those last like 3 or 4 years.
I would argue that it was weirder towards the last 2 or 3 years than it was even with like the shit from like Ewoks and the old Marvel comics.
Yeah.
That people
Yeah,
to criticize a lot.
Dial of Chronicles, the man. Have you removed your helmet? He is not.
Well, I don't have my silver play button yet, so I can't.
Oh yeah, is that the goal there?
Yeah, get me my silver play button, and not only will I remove my helmet, but I will also do the Han Solo dance from Star Wars Connect in full armor.
We need to make that happen, dude. I'm down for you. I'm anything I can ever do to like get you to. I mean, we're not a big channel, but I'm always pushing your stuff. But
you make me blush all the time.
I mean, like I've told people several times. I'm like, he was my favorite Star Wars YouTuber, and the fact that he said yes to being on our Rinky Dink channel back like during the COVID days, dude, most knowledgeable guy that I know about Star Wars and stuff like that. But Tad, before you head out, what's your give us your plug, your Patreon, your channel, all that good stuff.
All right, so my channel is Manda-Lore. It's a play on words on Mandalore, but has to do with lore. In most of my videos, you'll find the plugs for my Patreon and my Discord and all of that. I don't really have a lot of social media right now since I got rid of Twitter. But
good for you.
Yeah, well, I got rid of it ages ago, and somebody the other day actually commented, like, "Do you have a Twitter or an Instagram?" I'm like, "No, I'm not planning on making one."
No, I wouldn't. No point.
I'm currently in kind of like a video lull at the minute while I'm trying to write a huge video right now. I have got maybe 3 paragraphs out of what I expect to be like a 12-page script.
Sure.
Because it's just a oversaturated subject. And then I have a video that was supposed to come out. I talked about this a little bit earlier. Video that was supposed to come out last week, but is now undergoing review for potential copyright stuff. So I'm currently kind of screwed. So
hopefully that gets panned out. Do you have channel members? Do you have that like on as an option on your channel?
I'm eligible for it, but I don't really know what it is or how it works, so I haven't enabled it.
It's basically like Patreon, but specific to YouTube. But what I would recommend for you is turn it on and just be like, all you get is emotes. Like, no, like leave the commission videos and stuff like that to Patreon and stuff, but turn it on. Like, if you're a channel member, my understanding is that you get an ad-free viewing experience, and people can use like emotes and stuff.
Oh,
Like
that's
Skooma
cool.
has a bunch of like emotes and shit that he always spams when I tell him to. Same thing with like Dial Up Chronicles and stuff like that. But yeah,
All right.
I would definitely turn it on because your channel, people would be willing to become members.
Yeah,
For sure.
Maybe I'll look into that, but I'm swamped with commissions right now, so I wanted to avoid adding more to that. You know?
That's why I'm saying like definitely don't be like you're not getting all you're getting out of this is you're supporting me and you get emotes.
Right.
That's the gist of it.
Okay.
Thank you, Skooma, for spamming all the emotes.
All right.
They
yeah,
show
maybe
up
I'll look
weird
into that.
in our software we're using here, but they show up in a normal fashion on the actual YouTube browser. But,
Oh, cool.
Anything else you want to say, Tad, before we head off?
Not really. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I love being on your channel. I always find time whenever you ask me to come on. I hope someday to actually go to the real basement, but
I'm so down, man.
preferably if Barb agrees to let me out. I mean, like, when's the last time you've seen the sky?
There was no. This is like not even in character. There was a time period there was like, holy shit, I haven't left my house in like 2 weeks.
Oh
like,
my!
I was like, I had nothing to do. I had no reason. Like, it was cold out. Couldn't take my dog for a walk. I was like, I haven't left my house in like, I had to go do something right now.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, but yeah, we would love to have you for sure. But make sure you go subscribe to Tad, and make sure you like all this stuff. Get all this stuff out. By the way, if you're watching this right now, if you haven't liked the stream, like it so that way people see it. YouTube really cares about that stuff. But yeah, other than that, I think that what we'll do is we'll hit the outro, and make sure you stick around for that because it's a bop, it's a jam, it's a goof, it's a laugh, it's a riot. And then here in like the 20 minutes or so, I'm going to be getting into the Barb's Basement Discord and just hanging out, playing Fallout in the voice channel. Feel free to stop in, hang out if you want to. Only rules are no slurs. That's about it. So,
Nice.
yes. But
no talking about those
time.
dirty Cathar or
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'm just saying, the Mandalorian, some of those people they nuked, they had it coming.
getting spicy.
Yeah, we'll let you know next time Tad's gonna be on the show. But yeah, love you boys, appreciate you.
Bye everyone.